Hey everybody, welcome back to Dialog Choices. We're like a mold that just grows continuously and no one can stop us.
Or you pour things
Nothing
into the
can
mold.
stop us except Christmas. That stopped us pretty good for that week.
Oh, that was, yes.
Christmas, the anti-podcast holiday. God. We were having a very long conversation about dinosaurs off podcast because we're good at this.
Feathers.
Yes.
And we're like, we should really start the podcast. But now I'm like, how much do we go back?
And so the conversation devolved into from dinosaurs to Jurassic Park and to the music of Jurassic Park and arguing about the themes and why John Williams scores are important.
Yeah.
We did that all in 5 minutes.
This is a bad podcast. This is a really bad way to start a podcast.
It is. Okay, but the important part is, audience, we need you to be here for the experience of discussing why a John Williams score is important, even though all he does is the fundamentals of music.
That's the question. I like the way you put it.
And exactly how John Williams is known, but say everyone else on the planet who makes normal music like normal humans is not.
All I'm doing is regurgitating information from Sideways, which is just one of the best YouTube channels. But he's great.
From my experience, it's because most movies don't have scores that matter to the context of the movie. They have scores that just make noise. And that's not what music is supposed to be, especially in a movie. Yeah, like when you just make sounds happen, that's not music. I can make sounds happen with my ass. That's not music.
No, it is music. Out there are like dun 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 dun.
Sounds can have a very sounds can have a very deep meaning, even especially when tied to images, like just drums in the background. If you play the drums like simple boom, boom, boom. Every time there's the monster on camera, you grow to associate those sounds. It's not a very developed musical idea, but it's still over the course of the movie you associate the drums with a monster. It's still
but there are ways that you can. But there are ways you can use music to like sum up a feeling.
Yeah,
and like that's the thing about Jurassic Park.
And you do it in a really
Pavlovian
way. You just literally give people that feeling and then play that music when it's happening, and then you can and then after you've programmed your audience to associate a song in a certain way, you can reuse that music again to revive that feeling in certain other contexts.
But there are some songs,
if you're smart about it, you can use it to infer things that aren't on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And there are some, but I mean there are ways you can fail to do that too. There are plenty of ways you can make a bad song tied to something, and
a bad composer would perhaps play the song at the beginning of the movie and then at the end just play it again, and people, it's the song from the beginning of the movie, and now it's very loud.
Well, that also comes to like that also does or deals with like directors too. Like there's a lot of like pieces in making a movie, and a composer shows up and does like his specifically required part, which is, hey, we need music for these sections, please make the music. And that's it. He walks away like, I made the music, hope you have fun. And that's it. He doesn't get to show up at the director's booth and go like, no, you have to play it exactly as the car shows up. Like, he just says, hey, look, I record music for these scenes at this time. If you use them, you don't. If you do, you do. And
ideally the music is made for specific scenes, and that's the point of it.
Steven Spielberg could show up and be like, actually, we're canon the whole thing, and dinosaurs just are always on the screen at all times. And John's like, well, I already made the music. Like, you either want new music or you don't.
Like music scoring is so complicated that for a lot of good movies, like the it doesn't even like even when they're playing the same theme in a different moment, it's not actually the same piece of music. Like it's actually
the Lord of the Rings has that a lot.
New different recording.
The Rings is like a fucking opera.
It's what I mean is like it has the same themes,
weird,
but played multiple times in multiple like. It's not even the same song effectively, because it's just sort of deconstructed or accelerated or skipping some beats, and it's all that's what Keith. I think that's what Keith is talking about.
Lord of the Rings and Star Wars are both examples of really elaborate and put together scores that specifically. There's a series of different themes that represent different ideas throughout the entire film. that are always associated with those specific things. Like there will be a theme for the Ring, and there will be a theme for the Shire, and there'll be a theme for like Saruman and stuff like that, and the orcs, and those will play in specific contexts, and like they're burned into your brain, like the dun dun dun, yes, dun 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 stuff. It's like it's in there, and you have an association with it. It's not just like a song that plays sometimes because you like it or whatever. And it leads to moments where like you can have like, oh, I'm gonna fuck with the audience here because I'm gonna have like a moment where like Frodo's looking listfully off or whatever, and it's like the third movie, and that they're so far removed from all context of familiarity and so on, and like maybe like I'm not using a real example. I'm just imagining like what you could do with this kind of stuff because I haven't watched Lord of the Rings recently. But you could have like, for example, like you could do something like have the Shire theme play when Sam saves Frodo from Shelob, and that'd be like, oh, it's not literally the Shire, but it's like it's the only familiarity. It's like he's in this context, Frodo is so removed from anything that he's ever known, and he's in a horrifying, dangerous place, and he's on the verge of dying. And in this specific context, he is rescued by the only thing that connects him to the home that he once knew. And like, so you could be like playing the Shire theme, for example.
The third movie does have. The third movie does have a moment where, right at the very end, where Frodo and Sam are talking to each other about the Shire, and that particular song in the movie, like if you get the
isn't that song like da 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 da, like that one?
Yeah, that's the one. But there's a song where they're in Mount Doom and they're talking to each other about the way back and all that.
Yeah,
and it's like the whole piece of that dialogue
to be nostalgic.
It is, but it's also so amazing because it goes through phases, and it just goes as Sam is talking, and then the counterpoint that Frodo makes to Sam's hopefulness is just it gets darker, and it's just such a beautiful track. And if you get the soundtrack, you don't get to see that like in the movie, because in the soundtrack it's just the extended notes. Or the extended sort of themes of each one of those parts, so it doesn't quite work. I like listening to the soundtrack DVD for me. Never really works like it does in the movies, because it's just not the same thing, because it doesn't work as well. Yeah, it's just like go back to it every time. I'm like looking for those little bits, those moments where the movie's like, I want to be in this part of the song for 5 or 10 minutes, but it doesn't happen in the soundtrack because it's not there. It's like it's different for me. I think
that's the kind of music I prefer is like non-lyric based music. So I as a kid, I always had a lot, like I had the Jurassic Park, the Lost World, Titanic, like a lot of soundtracks to movies, because I really like
famously non-verbal Titanic songs.
There's the only one that you know of is My Heart Will Go On. That's it. Everything else is like Titanic has some pretty good music.
I legitimately can't remember its soundtrack.
Like the music of them like getting off of the boat is really good. Where it's like dun dun dun.
Yeah, I may have only seen it once.
Dun 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 dun, and you can hear like you're listening to it.
Yeah, it is a James Cameron movie. Yeah.
You can hear like music. The moment when the water hits the boat, like gets into the boat, because you can feel it in the soundtrack. You're like, oh shit, someone's dying. Like it's like really good. And then like the last song is like, and like My Heart Will Go On. It's like, why are you here? Like, go away.
Like, one of the reasons I love going through Sideways as a channel is because he dissects this stuff really well and goes into like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like examples of how like a theme changes meaning over time, over the course of like decades of media, where like originally there was a song that was basically, it was functionally like Luke's theme, in that I think it was called The Twin Suns, and it was like the song that plays when Luke looks out over the horizon to see the twin suns on the horizon, and it's like the call to adventure, like the dun 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 dun. And over the course of the franchise, it just morphs and loses its original meaning, and it just becomes the Force theme, basically. Like it functionally becomes the song they play every time the Force happens. So you'll have somebody completely divorced from Luke that has nothing to do with him that will just randomly be like they'll have a big moment where they lift like a jet. they lift a spaceship out of a pond or whatever, and it'll play that song dramatically over it, and it becomes more and more separate from him. But
kind of what happens when you keep like pulling John Williams and you do things that he does.
Yeah, and you're necromancering your franchise forever.
Yeah, I mean, poor John Williams is like done with Star Wars. He made the soundtrack for 3 movies, and he's like, all right, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, like he moves on.
Oh, he did way more than 3 movies. I think he did the entire prequel series.
Like, I'm saying he put his effort into the first 3 movies, and then you go to like the rest of the songs, you kind of realize like, oh, you're kind of, well, except for Duel of the Fates, where you're like, oh shit, someone woke him up. He like came out of a slumber and did Duel of the Fates somehow, and then like moved back on to doing very just all right, Star Wars music, whatever.
Yeah. What was interesting is that he made a video about the sequel trilogy, and largely confirmed a thing that people mostly thought was true already, which was the idea that they had no plan for what Rey's parentage was and what the answers were and so on, and were just leaving it as an open question, but not really knowing how they were going to answer it from the beginning. I think he made this movie. I think he made his like conspiracy style video before Last Jedi was even out, basically. Like, I think it was just one movie in, and he was already like, I cracked the code. They don't fucking know. And it's because he looked at the music themes and what they mean, and looked like, here's the songs they play here, and here's the songs they play here. Like, what does this mean? Like, and like, what could this mean here, and so on. And it was like, and it's like, there is no conclusion. Like, not only is there no conclusion musically about like what Rey's parentage is and so on, but specifically he came to the conclusion that John Williams was specifically leaving Rey's theme open in a perfect way, where you could slot in either light side or dark side themes into her theme and have it work. Like, you could augment her theme later. Like, he literally made her theme like a work in progress theme that could be modified later if they wanted to make it work with and evolve with the understanding of the character later, because they didn't have a plan for it. It's fucking fascinating.
Star Wars doesn't deserve John Williams.
He seems to be so fucking good at this.
Yeah, like this is his thing. He's like a great. He has won so many awards.
Even when they don't have a solution for what's happening, he has a solution.
He has a solution. Yeah, John shows up and he's like, oh, "Fine, I'll do the hard decisions here." Like, I feel bad because like there's like he's stuck in this franchise hell now, where he probably
making so much money.
Well, it's
hard,
not. It's
what a hard life.
I mean more of just like I feel bad that making art isn't always like, oh sure, he gets paid, but
it's a pain.
If you don't enjoy what you're doing, like if he shows up to work and he's like, God damn, is this really what you're gonna give me again? Like, look at this script.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he probably did like making the Star Wars music even more recently. But it was probably I'm trying to remember if he worked on Rise of Skywalker, and like that one was supposedly like that was supposedly a crunch nightmare where they were like last minute rewriting and reshooting and changing a bunch of the movie, and so that had to be like binge scored, and it's like, oh, like that if he quit, then that's probably why. It's like, all right, I'm done with you guys.
Do you happen to know what movies John Williams has?
If you're gonna EA your soundtrack, did he do E.T.? I just imagine he did E.T. I just imagine he did like Steven Spielberg movies. Did he do Indiana Jones?
Yes, he did.
I've never seen Indiana Jones, and I'm like, it's probably John Williams.
The first time I learned about him was actually Schindler's List, and it was the I think it's the only movie that I've watched with his. No, I watched.
Think of another as well. Think of another theme song that is like super iconic and
Dark Crystal.
Like, no,
fuck you.
I don't know if he was. Hold on, I don't know if he was in Dark Crystal. Hold on.
Most iconic fucking song ever.
No, he did the theme song for Harry Potter.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah.
Like, no, come on,
he's
man.
So fucking good at, he's so fucking good at melodies.
Can't sleep on John Williams. That man just will come out of nowhere and be like, "Well, your franchise is alive forever now." Like, could you imagine? Could you imagine that not being the theme song of Harry Potter?
No,
it would be crazy.
It retroactively becomes the theme song to the books. Like, it's just canon to the universe and the fabric of that world, even though it was made not like well after everything, even when the first movie was basically probably done-ish. And he just like makes the canon sound of what that world is. No, he's genius.
Meanwhile, for fun, the composer who made the soundtrack for Lord of the Rings, Howard Shore, he he has made a score for two very, very wildly divergent movies from Lord of the Rings. One of
Weekend
which
at
is
Bernie's.
One of them is Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh yeah, John Williams probably did Home Alone.
The other is Twilight.
Does Twilight even have a theme song?
Wow!
Do you know what it is? All I know is that there's a Muse song. I think they play Supermassive Black Hole while they're playing baseball. Which is like an unreasonably cool song to play for such a bizarre scene of like, I think it's just like a bunch of gray vampires standing in the middle of an open field in the middle of fucking nowhere. A scene so empty looking they look green screened into it, and they're just like trying to play baseball but cool, and it's like. It's like that fucking song by Muse, and it's like this sounds way too cool for how stupid the screen is right now.
Also, yes, John Williams did do Home Alone.
Yay!
There you go.
I'm winning John Williams bingo. That's not how bingo works.
He's done a lot. He's done way too much.
When are we going to force ourselves to watch Twilight and do commentary over it for a podcast series?
I've already seen every movie of Twilight. I don't know what you're waiting for. I haven't seen
any of them.
Oh my god, you're missing out.
Am I? Is that the word for it?
Yeah. I heard like 5 minutes once, and I was good for.
I've heard nothing happens in any of them until the last 5 minutes every time.
I mean, doesn't that depend on what you consider something?
It's just movies of like meaningful looks and rapey themes, and then suddenly plot. Oh my god, who are these people? Oh god, credits.
But maybe the meaningful looks and rapey. What did you say?
The rapey themes are the content.
Oh, themes, right? Yeah, maybe that's the plot. Maybe that's what they're there for.
I mean, that's not what plot is.
It could be.
This is not what the word means.
Yeah. Well. In Twitter world, it might.
In Twitter world, oh god,
isn't plot like a thing, like a euphemism for fan service, basically?
Yeah, plot is a.
You mean an anime world?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, whenever there's like a swimsuit episode or something, you're like, oh yeah, the plot, right?
It's been weeks, and the or at least it's been at least a week. And the vampire giantess thirst posting has not vanished.
I don't think it will.
I still keep seeing it.
This is going to last until the game is out and beyond. It's just how they are going to build the hype machine.
I blacked out for a second. For what? What did you say?
It's what we talked about last week during the podcast. The Resident Evil giant vampire thirst posting. I'm still seeing it when I scroll.
I really don't. I don't get it. I really don't like how she looks.
They revealed a second vampire lady.
She's really smaller. Bad.
She's smaller.
Yeah, well, she's like regular-ish size, and she's got like goth vibes, I guess.
It's weird because like Resident Evil. I mean, Resident Evil people don't look good. Like they.
What do you mean? That little kid from
They're always supposed to look like. I mean, like especially the villains.
Was a super monster.
They always look terrifyingly ugly. Like I would never want to interact with these humans in my life.
There's like Resident Evil 4 that has the kid.
There's like a worrying corpsiness to it. Are you talking about Ashley?
Like
the president's daughter?
No, the kid that's really annoying in Resident Evil 4 or maybe 5. I don't know because I didn't play them.
The one
that dresses up like Napoleon, the enemy.
Yes, that one. Isn't he like the super monster?
Yeah, all the enemy.
Oh, that's
all the enemies in Resident Evil. If they're people-ish, they still have like they have corpsey skin, like corpse.
Yeah,
it's all gray and like
Well,
the vampire lady looks the same way, and I'm like, oh god, I hate it. I hate everything about how she looks. It's like, and people are like,
head monster.
But yeah,
I think people just push past that.
That's some like true love stuff.
Sexy Frankenstein has been a theme for like decades at this point. Like that's just a type apparently.
I never. That's right. She's basically sexy Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, Bride of Frankenstein.
I don't know, man.
I never watched that movie. I know
it's like thinking any kind of
the Bride of
Silent
Frankenstein
Hill
is just
are cute.
part of the original Frankenstein story, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Bride of Frankenstein is it's like canon.
Yeah, I remember
the monster movie lore,
like the original novel, I think, basically, because I remember I read Junji Ito's Frankenstein, and I was like, he went some weird directions with this that I didn't expect. And then I talked to Stephanie, and she was like, no, that's just what happens in Frankenstein. Like that was supposedly an accurate adaptation of the original Frankenstein. It's just that the movies
Frankenstein was like a railroad, right? It was like a weird train ride where you're like, what the hell's happening here?
Yeah, well,
a lot of old movies are like that.
There's a lot of and that happened. But in
the movie's condensed it very much. There's like, he makes scary monster. People hate monster. Ooh.
Yeah, all the iconic scenes of the movie in many cases are things that aren't really what happened in the book, or are not the same way and stuff. Like, because it is like this monster happens and he's like a peaceful monster, but everybody hates him and attacks him and drives him away. And then I think there's like a woman that's like nice to him, and he accidentally kills her because he doesn't understand his own strength or something, and because he's like a child in a monster body. Like, and I think like a lot of that is made up by the movie. And so I went, and only having some vague images in my head of a movie I've never seen either, I was definitely like, oh, this isn't what I thought was going to happen in this book when I was reading the adaptation of Junji Ito's manga adaptation of the book. So I thought he was taking creative liberties, but it's actually just what happened in the real book, supposedly.
There's a lot of old horror
canon.
There's a lot of old horror that works like that, where the original story is just sort of either it doesn't work anymore because our sensibilities have evolved, or they have been just so readapted by movies that, like, I'm thinking of the Nosferatu specifically. I think the original movie, is it the Nosferatu that is the first Dracula movie? I don't
remember. I'm not
maybe I don't know if Nosferatu or Dracula came first.
No, because
I guess Vlad the Impaler came first, but I don't think he was a movie.
No, it's an adaptation, because I got it. I don't remember exactly, so it's worth what it is for me to say this. But when I was a kid, I was really into Jules Verne, and Jules Verne has this one book that is very different from everything else that I read from him, and it's the Castle in the Carpats or something, and it's basically a horror book, a horror novel. But it's really weird. It's because at the time I knew what horror was, and I was like probably 10 or maybe a little bit older. And for me, the book felt really weird, and I didn't like it. And later on, like probably when I was 16 or a little bit older than that, I went and looked into why that book even existed, the Castle in the Carpats or whatever it's called. And apparently it's a ripoff that Jules Verne did of the original Dracula, or the original book, the original sort of like romance. Yeah, so it came out like 6 years after, because apparently at that time, it was really popular to just have horror monster stories basically in novels, and he was trying to get a grip on that, and he didn't get a grip on that. He didn't write another book like that ever.
There's always been fairly desperate people just trying to sell copies of things,
even famous authors.
Yeah, like there's like the novelist that wrote a book that famously predicted the Titanic crashing, but then if you go back in time, you're like, oh wait, no, he just already had a book that was about a ship.
Oh, that one, yes.
And he changed it after the Titanic happened to make it seem relevant to that, and then people discovering it way later, and they're like, wait, this book was originally published at this date. That's before the Titanic happened. He predicted the Titanic, but it's like, no, because the first edition of that, which is the original published date, didn't have any of those connections. It was that's a fancy version of saying the Simpsons predicted the future. Yeah, except with books and Titanic. Which that's always its own bag of stuff where it's like, well, one thing, Simpsons just has a billion plot lines, and the other thing is that many of these elements have we're just already, like, many things that are seen as now and new were just things that already existed in slightly different forms in the past. So the episodes were just about that. Yeah. Like, oh my God, this Simpsons predicted Trump running for president. It's like, he's not. He did that. He's not new to politics.
Like, he did that. Like, I think the first time he did was like in '98 or something.
Like him getting involved in politics in irritating ways has been a very long running thing.
Yeah.
Like people just have a very short-term idea. I'm as somebody who has covered a lot of quarantine games like Pathologic and Pathologic 2, and
that sort of
sometimes people
games.
sometimes people mean zombie games, and also like Subnautica is literally a quarantine. Like that's the plot of the game.
Oh yeah, it is.
I'm sure. It's like, oh my god, this game predicted 2020 is like a fucking comment I get every day, and I'm so sick of it. Oh my fucking god. I'm so fucking tired of it. We've had pandemics before. Quarantine as a concept wasn't invented in 2020, like even remotely.
I'm assuming mostly on your Pathologic Let's Plays?
Vampire gets it a lot. Because that game, despite being incredibly forgettable trash, is more successful than Pathologic, because that's the justice we live in.
How did...
Yeah.
Did everyone just like forget the bubonic plague happened? Did everyone just like vanish that out of their fucking
I thought everyone
cortex?
had forgotten about Vampire, but everyone's like revisiting it in the context of the plague, and I'm like, you're revisiting the wrong game from that year.
I mean, I don't think Vampire is better than Pathologic 2, but I thought it was, if it didn't have the combat like it does, it wasn't a half bad game.
It wasn't the worst. It had one really clever idea that it failed miserably at executing on, and then it really didn't have anything else going for it. It's pretty much just that
clever idea.
The fact that every community is an interconnected web of NPCs that'll affect each other's stories, and that you, as this bloodthirsty vampire, are going to like impact this world because you have to eat people. But like the game was so easy, even on higher difficulties, like you could reasonably beat the game with relatively few kills. In fact, some people got through the game with no kills at all, I think.
It felt to me like it was just the side quest tree, just in a different interface.
And like every other region served up a handful of like truly despicable people that were really easy to justify killing. And so like it was just like, oh, this, you really, like I if I remember correctly, I had to like make up my own rules. Like I had to force myself to feed on people. I had to invent a thirst mechanic that wasn't in the game, in order to make the game, in order to interact with that system in a meaningful way, because I was so frustrated that there was this whole system here, but like to be a good guy and get the good ending or whatever, and only eat when I really have to, I would just basically not eat anybody, and like nothing was going to happen. And I'm like, but that's the only interesting thing in this game. Like you should never have like a morality system or like some kind of like thing that incentivizes you just to not engage with the only good part of a game, unless that good part of the game is going to self-incentivize. Like that, what the game needed to have was a vampire like bloodlust mechanic where you need to feed every X number of like levels or X number of like hours or whatever, or else you would like go into a blood frenzy and like feed on somebody that you don't get to choose or something like that, which is a mechanic other other vampire narratives have, including I think even like Vampire the Masquerade tabletop stuff might have mechanics like that even. Because like it depends
on your clan.
If you take this kind of game and threaten people with the idea that you'll lose control and feed against your will, then suddenly you have the incentive like, okay, I need to like split hairs here, because I'm going to try to be like some kind of good person or whatever. But if I don't feed on somebody, then the disasters could be the consequences could be disastrous. Like maybe I'll fucking collapse this entire community and wipe them all out if I don't like keep myself in check. And so like something to engage with on an interesting level would have saved that entire game. But instead they just lazily applied RPG mechanics to it. And by RPG mechanics, I don't mean role-playing mechanics. I mean video game RPG mechanics, which is that there's a skill tree. So your only incentive to eat people was to level up.
I feel that it's dangerous to tie gameplay mechanic, or rather role-playing mechanics, where when we're talking about who to eat effectively or who to kill, tie them to gameplay mechanics in such a drastic way. Like I think it's cool
like
if it's no. What I mean is, like, imagine you don't eat anybody and then you go into a frenzy like you do in Vampire Bloodlines, for example. it's usually just a call for you to just reload the game, and I think they designed the games also aware of that.
That's
lot of people
make
just
an auto-saving one slot game that doesn't let you do it.
But then if you do that, it does change.
If you're the kind of person that faces consequences and your reaction to those consequences to be like, oh, I'm just going to undo that and not interact with this game in a meaningful way, then I at some point that's on you.
Yeah.
That's your choice to just refuse to engage with the game's mechanics the way that they're intended to be.
But
Pathologic's really fucking clever about that one, though. Like, you think you can dodge around our stuff? Well, guess what? With its fucking persistent consequences after you load saves.
I got a comment the other day just about me reloading saves in Pathologic 2, and I was like, yeah, and even with all that reloading, I still didn't get the ending because I couldn't finish the game. I got the bad ending, basically.
Oh.
Because, yeah.
You failed the campaign, essentially?
The very last day, there's this pursuit that you have to do, and I couldn't do it. I was, for the last couple of days, it was just a mad dash for resources and for trying to figure everything out, and I couldn't do it.
I had a pretty decent run going throughout the whole thing. It was going pretty all right. I get comments every now and then about how I didn't get a couple of significant scenes because I didn't have that particular thing go that particular way and so on. But for me, the main sticking point was near the end, there's a kind of a stealth combat gauntlet area, which may or may not be optional or whatever, but
I had to watch your videos to know how to get past that because I couldn't do it myself.
When I was in that part, I'm just like, oh my fucking god, it is hard to survive this. And so I was suddenly stocking up on deaths in a way that I was not happy about because every death has permanent consequences even if you load your saves, which is a hell of a new stress to introduce to your game. That was
what I did there
interesting playthrough.
What I did there was explore it as much as I could before somebody attacked me, and then reload immediately as soon as somebody attacked me. I basically cheated, but it was still very difficult. That game is difficult. I think Pathologic 2 could. I don't know if it's a failing of the game or if it's just the nature of the writing. What I mean by that is I don't know if it's a failing of the gameplay mechanics or if it's the nature of the writing, that it's very difficult to get into a mindset where you know you're going to play the game again after you've played the first time, because it's a game that's designed for that, but it also takes 60 or 70 hours to beat. And then you reach the end of the game and you're like, I want to play it again, but it's also 60 or 70 hours.
Yeah.
I think
there's just any long game that's kind of grueling in any way, is that you're not sure if you want to ever come back to it. Even Disco Elysium, where it's not grueling in the way that Pathologic was, but just the fact that I was especially as a Let's Player, reading aloud reams and reams of text and knowing that a lot of that text will probably be the same, even though significant cool things will happen that are be different next time. It's definitely disincentivizes doing the whole thing again. Well, that's kind of the nature of replaying games in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to love a game if you want to go back, and if it's more than 10 to 15 hours.
There's some games that lend themselves a little bit better for that. Anything that goes
shorter
closer to
is definitely helpful.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I want.
That's right.
Yeah, RPGs are always the ones where I'll never go back and play it again. If I did it once, I count that as the canon, because I'm not going to go and find the other routes.
You will be baked, and then there will be cake. I've played Pathologic. I played Portal 1 over and over and over and over, but you legitimately beat it in 90 minutes. It's such a short game.
And also it's relatively linear. It's not there's a whole lot to find after you beat it once. Yeah, but in the sense that
there's secrets sometimes, but
it
is a linear sequence of puzzles.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I did. I played it twice. I beat it normally, and then I went back and found all the secret stuff while playing it normally.
That's the one.
That's it. I'm done. I don't need to play the game ever again.
That's what I was trying to remember.
Revisiting Portal every couple of years, just because you could just be I kind of just it's like as if you felt like playing Journey. You just pop in, you go through Portal. It's one of the best games ever made. That was nice, and then it's done again.
The fact that it's short allows you to to keep those experiences of re-experiencing the game, keep the will to play the game fresh.
Yeah, otherwise you just have the opportunity cost is always hanging over you. Like, I could play this game again, or I could play any other game for the first time. And there's always so many now, more than ever before.
Yeah.
The thing is, Pathologic, the story itself is just, it has to be a long game because of the first off the gameplay mechanics are lent to you spending the whole day doing things, but I think if they could somehow condense it into smaller chunks. I'm not even talking about like a smaller game necessarily, but just smaller chunks that you could just sort of compartmentalize in your head a little bit better. Because especially Pathologic 2, it has such amazing moments and such great sequences. Basically, they're not really set pieces or anything, but it's just like turns of events. I mean,
it is already kind of separated
characters.
into days.
Yeah. Well, the first one does it better, I think, in terms of separating into days. The second one is all a blur. For me, it was completely all a blur.
Well, the second game blurred the lines between days because it created acts. Because the way that the first game worked is that every single day there was like one or two mandatory quests and a series of side quests that are happening around the town, and you had to discover them all just by incident, basically, or by getting letters in the mail, basically. Like you had to discover the quests. Like, so there was a significant chance that you would not even find the certain quests on a given day that they even were there. Even some of the important, like the mandatory ones, quote unquote mandatory, the main quests. And then the moment that the day transitions to the next day, the consequences of every single quest you do play out. Every quest you didn't do instantly fails, and then the next day clunkily starts immediately. And so
and a new theater is being played at the... How did they say it? I don't remember.
It's like a new play is being rehearsed at the theater or something.
That's the one. Yeah. Every day.
Pathologic 2 splits the game into acts, and so different intervals of days all count as an act, essentially. And so you have like a big spider web of quests, and some of them end the day that, like, there's like some that end the day that they appear, but there's a bunch of them that kind of like just kind of sit there in the background for a few days, and they won't really get resolved until the next major thing happens in the city. So you have like wiggle room of what to do with that, which did blur the lines between the days because they weren't cleanly segmented anymore. But there still was like the pacing of the days, and that both games take place over the course of like 2 weeks, and you have to do particular things on particular days, and there's just sort of like a rhythm to the game, and you're probably sleeping once a day, and so on and so forth. If nothing else, I just found it a clean way to like let's play the game, was to play like a day at a time, and then split that into. I would just play for a solid day, and then often in one sitting maybe, and then in editing I would figure out how many episodes I got out of that afterwards.
That's how I did the Bachelor. Is it the Bachelor is the first campaign in the first game, and the second one is the Haruspex.
The first game goes Bachelor, Haruspex, Changeling, and then in the second game, ideally, it would have started with the Bachelor again, because for narrative reasons, it's the easiest way to be introduced to the world and a lot of other stuff. And the Haruspex is the most mechanically complicated version of all the three characters. But
it's also the most fun.
Got in trouble.
Yeah,
they got in trouble because they ran out of development time and money, and they're like, "Oh fuck, which of these is the closest to being finished?" And then they put out the Haruspex campaign because they needed to put something out. And they were hoping they're trying to do the Double Fine adventure game situation, where they were hoping that putting out the first part of the game would get enough sales to generate the funds to like make the rest of the game. And it sounds like it didn't work out, but maybe I don't know if the narrative changed at all after H-Bomber Guy and Mandalore Gaming and so on like covered their game. I don't know if that led to any sales spikes that would help them finish the game. But that was definitely like a bummer. It wasn't the best sign when their online store closed.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I bought the I bought the Stairway to Heaven shirt, which was like the floating staircase from the first game shirt. I got it in XL thinking it would fit, and then it was very much not what we consider XL here. So I gave it to Stephanie. I'm like, this.
It's smaller?
It's so much smaller. I couldn't. It was like stretching around me. I'm like, this is not an American XL. I made a mistake here. So that was sad because that was a big, that was a long wait and a lot of shipping to get that.
But the XL was smaller in the UK.
But I also I have a copy of the Pathologic tabletop game.
That also you bought on their shop.
I bought the two of them together, and it came with like some stickers and some things that just like weren't part of the order necessarily, but they just kind of give them to you. And amusingly, it came in like a janky like cardboard box that was kind of like bent and weird looking, and the entire top surface of the cardboard box was just covered in stamps in a grid. Because they had to pay for they had to like fund the shipping for international from Russia to the United States via just like just stamp spam, just a giant fucking collage of stamps. It was such a visual. I've like never thought about stamps like that before.
Did you keep the box?
No, I did not. It's tempting to do this sometimes. Like I have a shirt from Movies with Mikey that came specifically, like they're all customized. Like they spray paint the logo onto each box individually, so each one of them's slightly different, and they like write little like notes, almost like you're writing in a yearbook, and it's like signed and stuff. But it's just like at the end of the day, it's like it's just a cardboard box that the merch came in. I can't keep
that's fair enough.
I can't keep like clinging to all of these. Like, oh my god, sentimental value. It's like I mean, it's not even a person I actually know, and it's like keeping every instance of this was just like at some point you just have like a weird pile of moldy trash in your house.
That's what I have.
Oh, Jesus.
So, yeah, they haven't released news since October 2019. So.
Oh man. I really do want to play the other two campaigns. I want them to come out.
Man, the Marble Nest is such a good pitch. It's so weird, but also it's like so much better than it feels like it's going to be so much better than the first game, that particular campaign. There's so much going on.
Didn't the Marble Nest come out first because it was like the teaser? I think it's supposed to be like
I played it.
I think it was supposed to be like day one of The Bachelor or something.
Yeah, or no, I'm not sure if it's day one or if it's like day 3 or something because he's sick. So it's weird. You getting into the storyline in media res? I think that's what it's called. It's so wild.
in media res. I don't know how the pronunciation works, but yeah, it's when you just pop in the middle because it's a vertical slice. They probably want to introduce all the different mechanics. They probably want you to be infected.
Yeah.
Which is usually not mandatory in any of the campaigns.
You never played Pathologic, did you, Andrew?
No, I would never. That's too much effort for me. I don't enjoy games that are that involved.
It is infuriating in some aspects.
Yeah, like the only reason I even like played Cyberpunk, for example, was because I wanted to see the fun of the train wreck, but I didn't know that it was going to be as bad as it was, because otherwise, like, there is no enjoyment for me in playing RPGs. I don't enjoy that.
Excuse me, I thought we were talking about Cyberpunk.
No, I'm saying like the genre
of RPGs. I'm like,
well, he's talking shit. Yeah, he's talking shit about you calling Cyberpunk an RPG. I think.
Yeah. Oh. Is it not? I mean, it has numbers that go up when you do stuff, and I consider that.
I'm just saying.
How dare you?
I'm just saying that 99% of the
basis of all RPGs now.
99%, no, maybe not 99, but the vast majority of dialogue options are you going through the dialogues that don't finish the dialogue, and then the one that does.
Yeah, no, I mean, so
it's so linear, it's unbelievable.
Games like Pathologic and stuff, they don't have the appeal to me because I don't care about the world they're in. Is really the answer here? No, I wouldn't.
You would.
Like, I would care if Pathologic had anime girls. I would definitely be more into it. But like, I like that's why I can do visual novels, but I can't do stuff like Pathologic where there's a lot of dialogue heavy stuff, but the majority of it is people I just don't give a shit about, and I don't want to be around.
I'm interested in why it bothers me more here the Witcher dialogue system. Because in Witcher 3 had that, where it's like, you're talking to somebody, here's your dialogue choices. One of them is gold, the other ones are white. The white ones are just like dialogue branches that give you more information, and the gold one proceeds forward. And when you get two gold ones, that's a choice. But it's like a fucking it's like a chalkboard is being scratched.
I know why.
When it's happening in Cyberpunk. But in Witcher, I'm like, this is great.
I think I know why. Because in regarding Cyberpunk in specific, what I noticed first, and I didn't notice it, I'm not correct in what I noticed, but I'm sort of correct, is that what I thought it was is that all the lines that your character says are you clicking a button, are you like making a choice in sort of more of a traditional role-playing game style where your character only says things when you click the line, but Cyberpunk doesn't do that. Sometimes your character will say lines that you didn't click on, it'll just continue the conversation, but that doesn't happen nearly as much as it does in The Witcher, in the Witcher games, not so much in The Witcher 3.
It might be because in Witcher Geralt's so clearly his own human.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's the thing, is that in Cyberpunk, you don't play the main character. You play the guy who's helping the main character do what he wants.
Are you talking about the bodyguard?
Johnny Silverhand is the only main character in that game. He's the main character. He's the one who has. He's the one who has the goals and aspirations. He's the one who has like the plans and the connections, the people you meet. He is the one that gets the plot moving forward. You're just a dumb host with fucking spindly arms and legs who gets in the way of the whole thing. Like, seriously, every time you do something, Johnny Silverhand goes, "Wow, what a fucking idiot." And then you sit there and you listen to him like tell you about something, how you're wrong, how he's right. And then you end up just doing what he says anyways. Like, it's like, all right.
But I just find myself thinking that like Geralt existed in several novels before the game came out. He has a set personality, and so you're kind of watching how he would interact with these scenes. And then there's branching storylines that are within the wiggle room his personality allows.
Yeah.
I do think that Geralt says more lines without your input, way more lines without your input than V does in Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
I think they scaled back the sort of autoplay dialogues, which was a criticism I remember of The Witcher, but honestly I'm really glad that they stuck with it.
Witcher.
The first game, people were complaining about it being like that in the first game, I remember, but they stuck with it, and in the third game you still get those sort of autoplay dialogues. I think that's good because you're not really, it's not the character that you made, you're playing somebody else, it says you're saying,
a conversation,
so it lends itself.
If they're not going to provide you with a meaningful choice, then they might as well just let the conversation flow naturally.
I think my biggest...
So doing like the Fallout 4 thing where it's like, here's 4 dialogue options that are all secretly the same dialogue option.
Absolutely. It's so much better to write something that is tailor-made for that situation.
Also, I think what really helps is that in Witcher, it's a lot more grounded in terms of you as Geralt are grounded in what you can do and what you can accomplish. Where in Cyberpunk, I could have literally wiped that town off the map like halfway through the game. I had way too many abilities. I had way too powerful gear. I would just show up to a crime scene and wipe everyone out without looking at them. And I'm like, what? Can I just go take out the bad guy now? And it's like, no. We have to go in steps. I'm like, I can literally walk into the building and no one can stop me. I can hack and make everyone commit suicide. I can literally just snipe people through walls. Why am I waiting? Whereas, it
is always very funny whenever a conversation starts where you realize, like, oh, I see. This is going to go in the direction where you threaten me, and then we act like this is a real threat that can actually end in bad things happening. And then, there's been multiple times where somebody I see for 30 seconds in advance. I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to attack me, and I could just shoot them mid conversation if they didn't force me not to in this context when they don't otherwise do it sometimes elsewhere. But then the moment the guns draw, I just beep! And my fucking only half spec'd for stealth, but not really character who has no points in pistols, one shot headshots them with a pistol and they're dead instantly. And I'm like, wow, what a character. What a boss fight that was.
And so what
that
are
was
you
like
playing?
they spent like 5 hours setting up this encounter, and I like.
I'm assuming, are you playing on normal or hard?
I'm playing on normal because I started on hard and then was miserable, which might have less to do with the difficulty and more to do with the first missions being hilariously poorly balanced, where everything's dangerous, but also every enemy takes 500 shots to kill, and they're like boring bullet sponges, and then that goes away.
Bothers me so much.
I beat the game on hard, and there were so many parts where people like even in the Discord, someone was talking about the fact like, oh, there's a boss fight at the club where you don't have weapons, and you have to just negotiate with him. I was like, no, I killed him. And it was like, how did you kill him? It's like, I just killed him. I just kept shooting him with shotguns until he died. And it's like, oh,
I literally punched him. Like, he drew his gun, and I just beat him until he was unconscious. And I'm like, I don't feel like this is how this is meant to go, but it went that way.
Like in hard mode, he could just one-shot you. So I just kept hacking his eyes so he was like blind, and I would just shotgun him over and over and over again. And then it was like, all right, I did it. I guess is this what I'm supposed to do? And like, I get to a point where I felt so like godlike that I didn't even know. Like I didn't like everyone who survived only survived by accident, or like it was never my intention to keep people alive. It was like, oh, you shot him and like the die rolled to where it didn't kill him, but he's incapacitated, and I would have to go and like purposely kill them.
The way that cyber psychos just can't die unless you execute them on the ground.
And I didn't know that.
They're just magically kill proof. And
I didn't know that going in. And so like what I would do is I would take my sniper rifle out and shoot them twice, get them down to like almost one shot to death. And then I would have to pull out my fist and punch them to death, because I thought that was the only way to bring them in. Once I didn't realize you could just shoot them to death, I just sat behind a wall, shot them 3 times, they were dead. Or they were like unconscious. And it was like, all right, wow, this is like the dumbest fucking game.
No, I've gotten through a huge percentage of the cyber psychos by just headshotting them from stealth with a sniper rifle in one hit. I literally one-shot them. It's like, it's a boss fight, and you just watch a health bar spawn and then empty. Like, wow.
Cyberpunk makes me feel like what it must be like to be Batman in the universe, where like no one can actually do anything to you. You're just this unstoppable force of crime stopping, but like everyone else feels like they have a chance to stop you, and they try, but it doesn't do anything.
People keep trying to make games where you can be a stealth guy or a run and gun guy, and those are totally compatible playstyles that can exist in the same game. And it's like, it doesn't work. It so doesn't work, and I think it's never worked. I feel like it's never worked.
Like the
Deus Ex Human Revolution does it well, I feel.
A good example of this in Cyberpunk.
Are there people who had a good time shooting through Deus Ex?
Yeah, it's got a bunch of toys.
Is that a thing people do?
I
don't do it, but it's definitely a game that's enjoyable to. I'm told, I've never done it, but you see reviews of people being like, "There's so many toys."
I'd try it at some point, which I probably will never play the whole game that way. But I don't.
The cover system isn't as bad as Mass Effect.
I don't trust like rumors about how the games are playable, because
I'm talking about reviews, but
because according to
it's not my review. So
because like according to like random people, like Ghost of Tsushima is like of the pinnacle of gaming in 2020.
Yes,
so I'm not trusting people these years.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, that's not. I just gunned through Deus Ex because I didn't have the patience.
It's about
stealth
patience.
People.
Stealth is absolutely patience.
Which is, I mean, Dishonored was the same way for me. It just struggled with the patience of waiting to stuff.
Oh, Dishonored's a good example. Forget it.
I'll just kill everybody.
I've played so both ways.
Dishonored might be the example where it works. You have such powerful stealth abilities and can do all these cool, clever things, but also like in the moment of action, like you're this nightmare, like terrifying, lethal person with a bunch of scary tricks, but also like it's like high damage that's incoming, so you have to be careful. So like, yeah, that was kind of an example that worked, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember the thing that didn't work for me in Cyberpunk was I had a quick hack or a hack ability where I can make someone commit suicide, and I had a I have I forget what the thing is called, but it's one of the thing that lets you have multiple quick hacks. I had a thing where it made it so that it was one of my upgrades made it so that certain abilities were contagious. And so it would spread to nearby people. And so I just went to a room and made like 3 people kill themselves. And it's like,
oh my god.
Like, oh my god, is
That's
this real?
horrifying.
Like, and like, so I just walked into a room.
Contagious suicide.
I just made one guy commit suicide. It spread to 2 other guys. I pulled out my sniper rifle, shot one guy who was too far away to get contagious,
and
the other 3 just killed themselves. And it's like, all right, I did it, and I just walked away because it was just a minor crime. Like, that's it. The day is saved, crime. I guess. Yeah, it's just one of those little blips on the map. Like, oh, there's a crime here, and I just showed up. I was like, all right, you guys kill yourself. I'm gonna kill this guy, and then like it just walked away from. It's like, you did it. Good job.
What a horrifying concept that you just like. Oh, there seems to be some sort of gang shootout or something happening over here, and you just make them all Death Note. You just write their names on the Death Note, and they just all die against their will in one go.
My favorite one is that it makes it even worse for ones that are automatically contagious. So like, there's one where you can make people like cough, like you basically infect them with a flu or something, and they just start coughing, and it does damage to them. And they can spread that to other people. But if you have the contagion, it can spread to everyone. And so I was just like, that guy's contagious. And I upgraded my damage so it was the max amount of damage possible. And so they're just taking like 500 hits per cough. And everyone's getting coughing. And they're just like dying from a plague. And I'm like,
that's
very 2020 of you. Like, all right. And I just again, minor crime. Just drove on my motorcycle away. Didn't matter. Like, it's just such a weird game. Like,
I'm playing the game pacifist-y a lot of the time. Not always.
I'm so sorry.
There's definitely a lot of moments. There's definitely moments where I just like, okay, I'm just shooting my way through this tiger claw den. We're just doing this. But in many situations, it's like, steal a thing from this place, and it's like either the people are explicitly not that guilty, or in some cases, I just acknowledge the fact that I don't have either maybe I missed some context, or maybe I forgot some of the intricacies of the world at some point between all the different factions or so on, or all the names. Or maybe just sometimes you just don't fully know what's going on with people, and it's like, are these people I should really be killing in the process of getting this thing? And so in many cases, I try to ghost through everything, but I also find that's the most interesting experience sometimes, is just being like, oh, I get to engage with this level design and figure out how to navigate this world without killing any of the guards along the way. And I'll incapacitate people, but I'll do it as little as possible, because not necessarily because I'm like, oh, I feel so bad, but because if I incapacitate people, they become a body that I have to worry about getting found. So it's like, it's best to just sneak past people. So the only hack I use is blind. I just blind people periodically. And so I haven't really gone down the dark, terrifying hole of all the distressing things you can do where you just look at somebody and they like fucking murder themselves or just die on eye contact and stuff like that, which is some of the distressing stuff this game has.
That was like the thing that was the thing that was infuriating to me about Cyberpunk, was like how powerful I became, where it gets to a point where the game like has to curtail you, where the game has to like talk you, like gaslight you into thinking you're not that strong, because otherwise the plot doesn't make sense. It's like, no, there's only two, like there's only some options you can have. Yeah, it's like,
how will we ever face off against Arasaka?
Yeah, you're like, oh, I don't know, Arasaka's a big company, we may not be able to take it. I'm like, I can make them all commit suicide right now. I can just do it.
It's like,
with
well,
my
this side mission
like,
introduced a supercar with a mega gun on it that takes care of all their drones, and I can single-handedly kill every humanoid enemy pretty easily. So I don't really know what the problem is here.
Like it's so weird to watch, and the game itself is such a mistake.
That is only Johnny Silverhand's plot. At least where I am and so on. Like Arasaka is a thing, and it seems inevitable that you'll deal with them over the course of the story in some way. Story. But like your plot is trying to be not dying.
Yeah, no, that's irrelevant. You dying or not? This
is via your read where you consider the protagonist inconsequential and Johnny Silverhand to be the only character that matters.
I mean, I beat the game.
I know.
Telling you,
I'm just saying that's explicitly the plot of the game, though.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of games like that, aren't there, where your protagonist's goal is to not die.
Well, yeah,
I'm saying
that's kind of your. That should be your. Like,
that's the status quo. But I'm saying, like, for example, Pillars of Eternity 1 does that. I just thought of another that I played recently as well.
Well, it's your
like where you're sick and you need to find a cure, and off you go into all the side quests.
Yeah. Well, it's how you open up the possibility of having the ability to play like a wide variety of characters that all would behave really differently, while still having a spine to the story that can hold it together. Because you have to think about, like, video games aren't D&D, so you need the ability to have a main story while trying to have the idea that you can play different characters that all behave differently. So you try to come up with a narrative aspect that is, like, universally appealing to every character type at once, and you have mixed results, obviously. Like, Fallout 3 is like, go find your daddy, which is like, that might be universal, or at least it might be a thing that appeals to both the good guys and the bad guys, I guess. But plenty of people play Fallout 3 and 4 and don't give a fuck about finding their dad/son, so it's not the most effective thing. Whereas Fallout New Vegas is like, that guy shot you in the head, and hey, you're back alive, that's nice, but that guy shot you in the head. You probably want to figure that out. Like, you're probably curious about what that guy's up to, and maybe you want to exact some revenge, or at least talk to him again or something. So that's in some ways more compelling. But a lot of games are just like, you have a curse that's killing you, or in some various way, or you're sick. Like,
it creates a timely tension.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a thing that you need to get done within an X amount of time, or else you, the person that you are currently playing as, will die, which means you have failed.
Yeah. So Cyberpunk's like, you are going to die, and you're going to die in a way that's kind of a uniquely horrifying cyberpunky kind of way. Try to fucking deal with that. You better fucking try to fix that problem. And then, like, I think, like, a slightly different rift on it is, like, Dragon Age Inquisition, I think, is the one where you have, like, there's, like, demon rifts opening everywhere, and you're like, as the Inquisitor, you were, like, specifically weirdly infected with, like, there's this thing in your hand that is there's this thing in your hand that lets you close rifts, but it's also killing you. And so it explains why you're the main character and why you're special and everything, but it also, like, gives you, like, this compulsion of, like, even if you didn't care that much about the fate of the world necessarily, it's like, following this storyline's the only way you're gonna, like, get down to the bottom of, like, what to deal with your impending doom. It's kind of just a go-to way.
I haven't played the Inquisition game.
Otherwise games have to make, like, assumptions.
Yeah, it's tricky coming up with interesting main motivations for open world RPGs.
Sometimes the game can just assume, like, hey, you bought this game, the premise of this game is this theme, so clearly you're into that, so we can just assume you're into that, so we're going to give you a character that's into that. Like Alpha Protocol. Alpha Protocol, you play as a guy who wants to be a spy, and so the game opens with him,
a good solution,
trying to pass the test to become a spy with this agency. And it's like, if you didn't want to be a spy, why'd you buy this game? Like, you must want to be a spy because you bought the game about being a spy, you fucking weirdo. So we're just going to assume your character is into that because you should be into that. And if that contradicts your role playing, I don't know what you were expecting, honestly.
Yeah.
The other way is to have such a long first chapter, or not necessarily a very long first chapter, but the first chapter be very linear so that you can build your own motivations. Like, for example, KOTOR 2 does. Although there's also the they're gonna get you plot that later.
Usually somebody's after you. Because you have to account for Andrews, basically. Like, you have to figure out what to do with the idea that, like, what if your player just doesn't give a fuck about, like, whatever character you've decided is the crux of the story or whatever. Like,
I don't think you have to. I think that's kind of I think that's where you get a lot of.
You don't necessarily have to, but you end up with the situation of like, I don't fucking care, and it's like, okay, well, then what's going to be the basis of your role playing if you don't care about the thing we assumed you'd care about?
Like, not everything has to be like. I don't think every media has to be for me. And I think that's why I don't play RPGs, because I don't care. I just don't fucking care. And I would rather not be in a position where I have to make a game developer cater to my wills than like, I'm just gonna go play Spyro. I'll have fun.
But it's an it's like a barometer. If your RPG caters to Andrews, then you're gonna have a solution for a lot of issues that might arise. For example, Baldur's Gate 1 has a story setup that is very much a murderer who's out to get you. So the motivation comes from that, they're gonna get you sort of plot line. So you care because it's your character that you made. And you care that somebody's going to get you. In Baldur's Gate 2 specifically, what they did is they got your sister. And
my sister.
If you make a character who doesn't care about your sister, then, well, there you go. You don't need to be an Andrew. All you need to do is make a character that doesn't care about your family. And that's relatively easy to make because, evil characters to boot. Just somebody who doesn't like emo. And it's like, but still, the point is, you don't need to be an Andrew.
My thing is like, they never, like, my problem though is they never actually go through with it. So like you go like, you don't care about your sister. It's not that I don't care. I want her dead. I want to kill her myself. Like, I want her completely out of like
you're existence. Just raising the bar.
That's the way that I play most stuff is I just wipe every living creature off the planet in my pathway to whatever I want. I come up with my own goal, and
we are the flaming fist. They say.
Well, that's the way that I played. That's how I played Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds, yeah.
Was I created my own goal, and my goal was I'm going to single-handedly destroy this entire solar system, and that's what I did. I went on my entire path doing nothing but whatever I wanted to do. I don't care if it helped people. I don't care if it ruined people. I put an entire planet to death basically, because I didn't give either one of them the keys to a spaceship. That's not my problem. I don't care. I got my goal at the end. And somehow the game rewarded me. It was like, yeah, you did it. Good job. Good ending. And I was like, what? What the fuck is it? I had zero companions. I didn't even take them on my ship. I completely told them no. You're never allowed near me.
You had Sam, didn't you?
No, the robot?
Yeah.
No, because I had a phobia of robots, so I couldn't have him as a companion. I wanted him so badly because, like, oh god, a robot. He doesn't have any personality, and I brought him with me, and I was doing less damage because of my phobia. And I was like, "You son of a bitch!" And I was like, "You have to get off you have to get off my team. You're hurting me. Like, you have to go."
How will Ada cope without Sam to clean her crevices?
So I had to do this entire thing struggling because I needed someone to carry my garbage. Because I picked up everything, and I needed somebody to carry it. So I just put all of my stats into carrying. So I had super huge weight capacity and a super amount of damage. And I had zero talking, zero everything else, because it doesn't matter. I'm here to murder, steal stuff, and get to the end. And that was it. And the game
you would just walk into an encampment, and you'd yell at a guy, and he'd be like, "But the bottom line," and you'd shoot him in the face.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have time for this. I've got things to do, sir. I have a bottom line to reach, and it is not here. And just like
hey, you go to a town, you're trying to sell me on capitalism. Unsuccessful. Your speech check has failed.
Yeah, like I would go to another camp, and they're like, oh, we're just wanderers, and we want to take down capitalism. I was like, yeah, but you're grouped up. This is just capitalism light. I don't want it. And just wipe them all out, too. It's like, no, you can't. You're not allowed to congregate. You're not allowed to hang out with each other. No people allowed. It's a no people. Like, only. You go to, like, I went to the... that's the way I played it. And the game still was like, good job. You defeated the bad board members.
There's, the fun thing is there's a character, Naomi, I think is her name, that her character is kind of all about that. Kind of all about not wanting to deal with people and just being alone, and alone is the way to do it.
Yeah, she's an alcoholic.
Also that, yes. But being an alcoholic is not part of her character. That's just something that she's going through right now.
What game is that?
In Outer Worlds, yeah. I don't know. You might have never met her because she's...
Probably not.
Or you might have not known she was a companion.
Yeah,
if it's a companion, I definitely told them no. If there's ever a point where they ask me.
When you go to like the acidic planet, like the
big one,
distressing toxic planet.
Oh,
there's the African American lady with she's like the
with the pink hair.
What'd she look like? She kind of had like
is she's the one that is she's the drug one?
She had pink hair, and she kind of had like a vaguely like gestury kind of theme to her, like she had like a
I didn't notice.
Did she have like a diamond pattern on her like green clothes or something?
Wait.
Let me see if it's Naomi. It's not. It's Nakomi? No, Mai? No, wait.
I don't remember. I haven't played it super recently.
Yeah. But let me see. Yeah, she's the pink-haired lady.
Wait,
Nyoka, that's right.
Is she the one that's at the bar that asks you to get the drugs for her?
Yes, I think so. She's in the capitalist light people.
I didn't do that. Yeah, I didn't do that. No, wait, did I shoot her? No, I didn't do that quest. I didn't do it because
no.
Well, because so she was like, I want you to get me drugs. I was like, no, you're either gonna help me or I'm leaving. And she was left. Like, yeah. So I was like, oh, I'll do it myself then. So I just left and I wiped everybody else out in the town and just like moved on. Because she was like, oh, go steal these drugs from me. So I went into the room or to the house that had the drugs and I got them. I was like, wait a second. I'm just gonna give her drugs and she's just a druggie. I don't need her. She's worthless. I can do this. My playthrough was I just wanted to kill everyone. That was it. I just wanted everyone to die.
Did you upload this playthrough or did you only upload the expansion?
It's on. Yeah. You can watch the whole thing. I uploaded my playthrough. Yeah. It's me just being a crazy person. Like I go to a place, a guy goes, "Hey, have you heard of capitalism?" I blow his head off and I just keep moving on. And someone goes like, "Thanks. You either ruined our life or not." And it's like
all I'm saying is Nyoka and you'd have been a nice
because I asked her one thing. Where is the person? And she goes, well, if you get me the drugs, where's the person? I will fucking kill you. And she's like, I won't do it with drugs. I'm gone. Bye. Like, I don't need you. I don't need you. You need me. That's the
Andrew,
problem.
You need to get past the first argument.
No, here's the thing. If you make a character that needs me for something, I'm abandoning them. Because that's not how it's not going to work that way.
She's not unattached. You find out that the reason she's like that is because she cared about stuff and was hurt. Yeah. And then you follow that whole plot line.
Blah, 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 blah.
There's a whole closure storyline.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Sounds like a bunch of drama getting in the way of me murdering people. I don't have time for it. I'm here for the good stuff, which is...
The thing is, you probably went to the place where that drama happens. You probably figured... Well, maybe you didn't figure it out, but like you saw the bodies of the people she lost.
Because they were just like, environmental storytelling skeletons. Oh well.
Oh no, yeah, I didn't like read anything if I didn't have to. I didn't acknowledge anything really. Because it was all a world that I didn't like. Everything about the world was terrible. Everybody in the world was terrible. There was nothing to salvage here.
Not necessarily every game has to be made for Andrew, but I think there is an argument to be made for the idea that like Elder Scrolls and modern Fallout games should take into account the entire range of complexity of players as best as they can, because they are so ridiculously popular and played by the most non-RPG fan gamers. They're really just base level popular. Like they just exist as their own entity, and not even as a part of a genre. And so
it just makes the game better as well.
Yeah,
like
when you're trying to appeal to like options. People whose only purchases are like FIFA and Skyrim, like you need to consider the idea they might not read anything. They might literally just swing their sword at every random thing. Like they might just
But the thing is, like
my strategy for RPGs is if it's not voiced, it's not relevant. That's the way I treat plot. And like Cyberpunk does this way too much, where it kept giving me shards all the fucking time, and I was like, I'm not reading this. If it matters to me, you're gonna tell it to me in my face, and I'm not reading a fucking book to find out your garbage plot. Like
there's a lot of cost saving measures where there's a formula to side quests where they try to make the side quest as cheap as possible.
So well. Like, it's just dumb tapes that you find, and it's like, well, let me tell you about why this tape is in the bathroom. Nice. I was running in the bathroom, and suddenly a creeper. Game. Well, yeah, but I'm saying, like, that is a way that I'll interact with your story, is if you give, like, sure, it's stupid that people record themselves before they die or whatever, but
and then they also leave every single tape in the form of, like, a playback
part 1, part
device.
2,
Yeah,
like it's it's also in a device.
Yeah, like it's
well, in Bioshock's case, it's fine because the only way to record a tape would be having a tape player to record it on.
No, that makes sense. I just always find it like I always kind of give a game bonus points where you get like a playback device at the beginning and then you keep finding tapes for it, because so many games, audio logs are just an individual device that would be the thing that was recorded on, and every new recording is on a new entire device, and I'm like, what the fuck? And like, or like how like everyone is apparently in other universes, like it's like every person in this universe owns 75 iPads. And they'll write like one text document on that iPad and then throw it in the garbage. And like, wow, I went through the garbage and found their iPad that says this, and then I found 4 more iPads to tell the rest of their story. And it's like, the fuck? Why is this like this? And it
says this, like you can't access other things in it. It says this.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only function. You don't get to use the device for anything else. You know, you can't like sell the device, which it should be worth something. It's one plain text document is all that's on it. It's like, what the fuck?
I mean, that's the thing, is like the shards.
At least shards are USB
sense.
Drives.
Yeah, they make sense because it's something you just plug into your head. And you're like, all right, I get the knowledge, but my
problem with the tape recorders is that they rely so much. Well, it's not from a like lore standpoint. It's just from a more what the story they're trying to tell is. They rely so much on telling the last few words of people. It doesn't always happen naturally. Certainly not in Bioshock, but a lot of games do that, where it's like, oh, they're coming.
The kingdom
and you were recording all along. Yeah. Like, you don't need to tell that story
right
like that.
That's what he said. He wrote,
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. It's just
Monty Python made fun of that before video games existed.
Before they even did. Yeah, absolutely.
He made fun of audio logs like 20 years before they existed. I think. I don't know the timeline.
That's the one big thing I hate about RPGs is like there's so much reading, and I don't.
But reading is good, Andrew.
But I would rather read a book. Like I would rather just read a fucking book.
But because a book isn't interactive.
But that's the problem. I'm here to interact. Don't like if I'm not interacting. If I'm reading a thing, I'm not interacting. So I'm not playing a game.
It's
what
true.
The fuck am I doing?
Getting documents of a story that already happened is not interactive.
No, I don't want to read a story. I want to play a story. That's why I'm playing a game.
In many cases, you've already killed the guy, and the quest is over, and you're reading about its context afterwards. Which is
He's like, let me tell you about my manifesto. I'm like, sir, you're dead, and I don't care, and I just move on.
Yeah, like, a lot of side quests in if they don't feature like one of your main characters and their through line, basically, and by main characters I mean just any character, like a side character, like. The fucking bartender that takes you on a series of like racing quests and stuff, like that's more compelling than most of the fucking gigs where it's like you walk up to the area, mysteriously some fixer that knows you're near the area promptly briefs you on this quest that you didn't know about, but you knew a quest was there somehow, so you went there, but you didn't know about the quest before you got there, so they brief you like out the front door of the quest about what the quest is, but they only say like 2 sentences that are really vague, because you actually have to read their email about the quest, but then when you're doing the quest, you have to go find and read a bunch of shards that are all around the building that actually explain what the quest is about and what the context is and so on. It's like, this entire story is non-verbal, and it's entirely like people just trying to make a bunch of documents that add context, but mechanically, it's almost always the exact same quest over and over again. You infiltrate a building, and you either kill that one dude or grab that one thing, and then they just try to make a bunch of flowery text around that tries to explain why it matters this time, and what the context is this time, but you almost never have choices to make in it, so the context kind of doesn't matter anyway. Unless you're going to like abort the mission and not do it, I guess. But like you often done the quest before you even figure out what the quest's full context is anyway. And then you get the same reward again. It's like, it's the most fucking rote by the numbers. Like it feels like a Ubisoft game, or like a lot of the side content in Dragon Age Inquisition and Fallout 4. Yeah. Where it's like, oh, this is worse than it used to be. Whereas like every side quest aside from like just like generic monster hunts, like, oh, wanted, get this hippogriff, and then you go get the hippogriff, and then some of those would be like, oh, you killed the ghost of the woman in the well, and here's some documents about her tragic backstory, would sometimes happen in The Witcher. But a lot of the times you meet like a complex character and they claim they want you to do this thing for them, and you go try to do that thing for them, but then halfway through you find out they were lying about the context of the quest, and the story evolves and changes and has twists. And like on one level it was formulaic that they kept having like a twist in every mission, like, there's an additional context you don't understand. But like the fact that they made you be confronted by that and deal with it in dialogue and make choices responding to that change was still it's just so much more compelling than whatever the fuck most of these quests are in Cyberpunk, where it feels procedurally generated. And it could be, you could procedurally generate these like via like, what is it called, like radial quests or whatever the fuck some games call it, where it's like they just like spontaneously spawn missions where they gotta get insert name here for insert reason here, he's a member of the insert
it's the Mad Libs of RPGs.
Like you can, there's games that just fucking generate these on the fly. Like I'm literally,
Fallout 4 does that, I know, at least, but I'm sure others do as well.
It's like Fallout 4 with the Brotherhood of Steel guy that in your starting town with Preston and everything before it branches off more. He's like, yes, I would like you to do thing. I would like you to clear this facility. It's full of, let's spin the wheel. It's ghouls this time. of the three enemy types, this time it's ghouls. And it's like, okay. It's like, oh yeah, go into this tiger claw den and grab the shard. And it's like, cool. I can't wait to read 2 documents that tell me that like, oh, it was a deal gone bad or something. It's like, and so at some point you've read so many of those shards that it feels like they're saying the same story as the last one you read. You're like, this is so fucking nothing.
Yeah.
It's just,
that's I think that's a symptom of, it's kind of the catering to the wrong crowd, really. They should cater to the Andrews, not to the people who want to play the game for 2,000 hours. Cater to the Andrews. It makes the game better, I promise you.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
Makes the game better.
Like the thing is like honestly, I walk away from these games having a less positive experience of the medium. I think that RPGs are kind of just a waste of time. Like, why does it matter? I can just kill everything and just go to the very end. What's the role playing?
But
what's
that's because they don't cater to you. They don't. No, they don't.
They are catering to me. They're catering to me and letting me have the freedom and the even Outer Worlds gives there is consequences to your actions. But I don't care about the consequences because I don't care. And that's the problem is like, if you keep trying to include me in some way, you get to a point where your game is so inconsequential that it doesn't the story doesn't matter. I can just, I literally don't remember characters. I don't remember towns. I don't remember anything because I murdered and wiped everything off the planet only to be given a congratulatory weird Evangelion clap at the end. Like, you did it. The world is saved. And while the entire world behind me is gone and on fire and screaming.
But that's because they didn't cater to you. They didn't allow for a player like you to have an enjoyable experience.
But if they didn't cater to me, if they just said no, if they just put their hands up and said, no, you can't just wipe everyone off the fucking map, then it would be different. I would have to engage with the people. I would have to actually get the drugs for this lady instead of going, why does it matter? I can do the whole story without you and it won't matter, and just move on.
I am finding that if you just have big divergent choices, there's a big tendency to make every part of the game completely segmented off from every other part of the game so that you don't have to deal with those consequences outside of that particular content module. But in particular, though, once they add the ability to just shoot people, you can just kill that character. You can just kill any character. Fuck it. Those games often feel almost entirely inconsequential for huge portions of the game in many cases, where it's nothing matters because anyone could die at any moment. So we can't let almost any NPC have any wider ramifications or context outside of the room they're standing in many cases. Which is the Fallout. That was the Wasteland 3 problem, where it's almost every character, except for apparently the fucking Reagan statue that they were sure we wouldn't kill. Apparently, almost every single thing in the game just never gets mentioned again outside of the specific room that they're in. Basically, it's like, oh yeah, there's a whole fucking there's an entire like weird carnival of like monster people that like theme themselves as Halloween monsters, and that's like their thing, and you'll spend hours there, and then the moment you leave, like before you're there, you have like no reason to know they exist aside from maybe one or two, like maybe they'll hear them on the radio once. And once you finish that area, it never comes up again, except for like maybe if a particular side quest decides to interact with it. But like it's even that's like exceptionally rare, and like you won't really hear.
And even that
it.
Side quest, it's like go elsewhere in the map. It's not even. Yeah. Isn't that like you don't need to talk to them again, do you?
No, not really. It mostly just turns into a thing where. It turns into a patchwork of disparate elements that all get summarized as a series of completely separate bullet points in a credit in the final text crawl of like, here are the consequences of your choices. That one storyline ended the way you did it. That one storyline ended the way you did it. And like they don't build to anything larger usually collectively. It's just a series of separate content modules that exist.
But I also think that's because the game is very long. If it was shorter, it wouldn't feel as as isolated because it just don't have as much to spread out. Because I always think back to the difference between Fallout 1 and 2. Fallout 1 is the 15-hour game where it has mostly like what you're saying in terms of isolated quests or isolated quest locations. They're fairly fleshed out, but it's sort of like Wasteland 3. But it's a short game, and you feel like you've made the difference where you made it, and you finished your quest, and that's it. And then the ending crawl has that effect on you of just telling. It's fresh in your mind, and you know what's going on. In Fallout 2, what they do is they connect. Because it's such a longer game, it's like 100 hours. And they connect all the different locations. There's a lot of quests that interact with different characters in different places. I need to think, who am I going to get help from, and where am I going to get this item, or whatever. There's a lot of quests that get you running all over the wasteland, and so it doesn't feel like islands, even though it sort of is. It's just that the islands are sort of a little bit more hidden in a way, because if a quest forces you to go elsewhere to solve a part of it, it doesn't mean that it's still not a quest for that place that you were at. It's just just that they moved the character elsewhere, but it feels different though. I think it makes the world feel alive because there's connections.
Sometimes it's just proximity can help a lot with making things feel connected more. Like I think about how like Disco Elysium exists entirely over like one town block, basically. Like it's such a tiny chunk of map. And every character is so densely packed together, and some of them will interact in certain ways. And it's also all building off of like the central like themes and events and what's going on with that location. That they're all thematically tied, even if they don't interact with each other directly. So like, it's harder to clearly mentally cut it into a series of chunks that are all disparate elements. The way that it is when it's like literally go to a different planet and drive it, like you could because like you could just go to like a planet in Outer Worlds and save it, and go to another planet and just shoot everyone on the planet, and the game will just keep going, and it won't feel like you did anything weird or contradict yourself or anything. And like Wasteland 3 was just like whatever's happening right now is happening right now, and it didn't matter 10 minutes ago, and it won't happen 10 minutes from now. And it's like, all right, well, how do I feel like dealing with this guy? Oh, he's dead. Okay. and then of course, because the game was a disaster, sometimes if you did make a choice that would have wider ramifications, the game would just forget what your choice was and do something else, which was extra fascinating.
Oh, did that happen? It never happened to me, but
we had a character that you can like. Did you finish Wasteland 3 already?
Oh, you were talking about Wasteland 3. I thought you were talking about the Outer Worlds.
No, Wasteland 3. No. Like we had a character that you can like reunite with somebody and try to reconcile them and stuff like that. And we when we met that particular NPC, not only was that character not with us, we killed that NPC. And then that character was like, wow, with what happened with that guy and meeting with him, and so that really just changed my outlook, and it literally changed that character's ending, where with the path that we went down, that character probably would have with the path that we went down, we probably would have had to execute that character for being a traitor.
Yeah.
But she just changed teams with us, like, casually because of a thing that she wasn't even there for and didn't happen the way she said it happened. And it changed the entire path and just worked out that way because the game forgot what happened in our playthrough.
I don't think it forgot. I think they just didn't account for that. Like they didn't have the time to program the option of like what happens if you don't bring that character with you and you kill that character.
Yeah, they just oops.
Yeah, they just it like they have to just go like we don't have the time. We can barely get this stupid game to run properly. I don't think we got time to focus on this.
And it's frustrating because like it was a completely valid, totally normal thing to do. It was completely possible.
Wait, Wasteland 3 and Cyberpunk tell me that maybe RPGs are just not possible in the modern era anymore. Maybe we've reached a point where like it's too difficult to make these things.
They can't make them 3D. Just make them 2D.
Yeah.
Wasteland 3 is not even 3D technically. It's like isometric 3D. You can like you can get away with so much shit
honestly,
with that. And
it's hard to figure out what happened with Wasteland 3. It's
not
confusing
time,
because it's so much worse than the previous game.
You don't even have to play. Like again, we talked about this in the previous podcast, but like you can literally just beat the game with Animal Whisper and just be done.
Oh,
with
people
it.
have told me as well. I've mentioned it in my Let's Play, and they've been saying that
it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
the Animal Whisper meta is just like too strong. Like
you could just give every character Animal Whisperer, and they'll be able to tame. They can tame something, and it'll be overpowered. That's what we did.
Yeah, we were that's how we literally beat the game. Everyone had an animal. It was stupid. It was like fucking Animorphs. Like,
we got to the we got to the final siblings like area, and we just decided, what if we all had animal handling? So we just like put a couple of points in animal handling, and all the random assholes that didn't have it yet.
An object that gave us animal handling.
So we just had 6 pets.
Do you remember we also found out that if you give someone animal handling, you can get an object that increases their animal handling. They can get an animal they want and then just remove the item and they can still have that animal. And so then you can give that item to someone else who can then get a higher level animal than they have. And then just keep moving the rotation. We had one of every animal. Like we had a deer, a doe,
and they never tested that mechanic. Not only because it was completely unbalanced and broken and clearly didn't work, but more importantly, it broke the game in other ways, in that the game has an unmentioned follower limit that it just doesn't tell you exists. And so if you get a certain number of followers, it just deletes your other followers.
Yeah, and we lost the pro.
Yeah, what happened? So on top of animal handling people, there's a series of like plot followers. Yeah, the provost is a random NPC you can meet, and like there's a few other characters we met where like there's just characters like that will follow you forever that are not party members
and fight and they'll join you as well, which is
follow you for
weird.
Plot reasons. And if you have these plot followers, but you get 6 animal handling followers, it just deletes your plot followers without telling you, and they never come back. They just go away.
Yeah,
and they're just
even
gone.
if your animals die, they don't come back.
Like we kept the provost alive the entire playthrough, and then one day we just realized, oh, he's gone, isn't he? He's like, oh, fuck, he just vanished when we got 6 animal handling followers because this game is a wreck.
But also, it doesn't matter because like one buck was stronger than every enemy in the game.
Yes,
and that's so weird.
All the random pets you can tame with animal handling, even if you're not good at animal handling. You don't even have to be like, because like there's bonuses to animal handling that give you like bonus stats to your pets and stuff. You don't need any of those. Just a vanilla ass like level 3 pet will be stronger than your entire party, including the characters that you've tried to make tanks the entire game explicitly, like Bronco, your character.
My build. Yeah,
was it Bronco and Kickboy, right?
Yeah,
Bronco was specifically designed the entire playthrough to be the tankiest guy and a melee dude, and his whole goal was to be hard to kill, and he would regularly get one shot throughout the entire game because the game had no sense of balancing, and armor was useless, and there was no such thing as tanking. But every animal you have was unkillable.
Yeah, dude.
They had like 12,000 health, and they would take like they would take like a tiny fraction of damage compared to everybody else every time they were shot. It's like, what the fuck,
dude? They had so much health, they did so much damage, and they like the NPCs almost never focused them. They would always focus you, like the players first. They would always focus the humans. So like you have this deer just run up, and you're like, oh, that guy's fucking dead. And the deer just like one shots the guy, fuck? All right, I guess I don't need to be here. Jesus.
I think didn't we have fights where literally our entire party died, and it was just watching animals fight, and then our characters would get back up after the fight was over.
Yeah, the animals would win. Like that was it. That was because of the buck. The buck would just show up to a person and two-shot him, and it's like boop, boop.
And also like the fucking animals attack like 5 times per turn.
Yeah, they get like so much AP. Wild. It's ridiculous.
They have like infinite AP. Meanwhile, the game was such a balancing nightmare that even though we were trying so hard to min-max our characters, they would just get fucking obliterated in one turn, literally before they got a turn in many cases. Yeah. Even when you're trying to ambush the enemy team, the entire enemy team would attack first, sometimes twice. Like they would all attack first, and then it'd be quote unquote your turn, and everyone on your team has 0 or 1 AP for some reason. So all you can do is end turn, and then the entire enemy team gets to turn again because like the game was fucking baffling. I genuinely couldn't tell what was happening the entire time with AP. Where like for the first 2 or 3 turns of combat on a regular basis, some people just wouldn't get turns for a while, and you would have no idea why. And sometimes it was literally like your entire team wouldn't have turns, or like sometimes in co-op, like one of us, all of their characters has AP for a turn in there, but the other one, all of the characters have 0 AP and just have to stand there awkwardly and get shot in the face and die before they have a turn. It's like that game was a fucking nightmare. I don't know how the nominated RPG of the year. Like fuck you. Jesus Christ.
I have noticed that like it's the armor issue is super easy to tell because weapons, you start off with weapons that do 10 damage, maybe 20 damage, and then halfway through the game you have weapons that do maybe 100 damage. Your armor meanwhile goes from 3 to 10. And you can see the problem. You can immediately see the problem. You just need to look at the numbers.
Like there's like 100 glitches and wrong things that are just like bold-faced wrong with that game. Like where it's like, oh, that's unfortunate, but then there's just like the most basic balancing issues, like that they have, like stuff that they had to know about. Like any number of bugs could have just been like introduced, like, oh no, the final patch that we did, like, oh, it fucked everything up. Like, oh, but we're launching tomorrow. Oh no. It's like the nightmares where you're like, oh no, I the test is today and I didn't study and I'm in my underwear. It's like that's what happens when you're fucking like everything gets somehow buggier right before launch. But like the basic balancing of the game being so hilariously wrong, you had to know. How the fuck do you not know? So you just like knew your game was just like they had to know their game just wasn't done on a fundamental level, and that none of the combat worked and none of it was balanced even remotely. And so like
you can finish the game, so that's better than
the game is
not
technically beatable. That's good enough. Yeah. But like there was no like I don't know if there even is a play style that will take you through that game and feel good the whole way through. Like I think everybody will just encounter like bizarre balancing problems that aren't even rare. They're just ever present the entire game, and you're like, I don't know what the fucking intended experience was here.
Take a lot of cover and not have any animals.
It's so fucking weird. Like
it's I there at some point there has to be a, I don't know what to call it, like a hey, this isn't working, guys, can we not do this anymore type intervention in the industry, where like you can't just keep making these games, like you can't just keep releasing not products. Like Wasteland 3 is a functional game, but at its core it's not, which is a problem. Like yeah, you can play the game, but when you've like actually playing it doesn't feel like you've played a game. It feels like you've kind of tiptoed around a bunch of mistakes in the pursuit of reaching the end so you can stop playing the game.
I'm enjoying the storylines. I think there's some interesting things every once in a while. The game
you don't have to do it. Like again, it's so weird how detached everything you do is. Like Keith, like we said in the previous, like we literally killed every single one of his children, and each time we went to the patriarch, he's like, "If you do it again, I swear!" And then you just like kill his other kid. And he's like, "I told you, if you do it one more time, I'll fucking." And it's like, oh my god, dude! You get like, it was more funny to watch him try to like in his mind do circles to try to like justify not killing you on the spot, rather than like the entire story in its entirety. It's like it was so funny, like killing his kid and being like, oh, we get to go talk to him. What's he gonna do?
Yeah.
How's he gonna justify this in his head to not wipe us out? And it's just like, but then you go to the very end of the game, and you're like, all right, we're here. What's gonna happen? He's like, yada. It's like, oh my god, is this really just like, is this all you are as a character?
And you just like this giant hype thing, and then we just fucking like take it out in like one turn.
You shotgunned it once and it was over. And I was like,
my shotgun was fucking nonsense by the end. It just killed anything. I don't know why the numbers were that way. It just was.
It was. I didn't do any
clever specking. It was just the most basic, like, I leveled up my shotgun and I got a nice shotgun, and it goes.
Well, we put stuff on it, like we added like buffs to it to make it stronger, but it wasn't like.
I mean, the main thing is that whenever the blue icon was ready, which was all the time, it just would everything in the entire cone died instantly.
That is very, very powerful,
including boss fights. It's like, why is this in the game?
It's hilarious when like the boss fight is this big ordeal, and it's like you have to sit there and listen to someone talk, and you have to watch this whole cutscene, and then Keith just walks right next to it and shotguns it, and it dies instantly, and you're like, what the fuck are we doing here? Why did we do all this? What's happening? Is this real?
Like when you play an MMO, and like the boss fight has 7 phases and all these different things you have to learn the dance of and everything, but then you come back 3 expansions later and one-shot them, and all of its scripting breaks, and he just teleports and fades out of existence, and then a cutscene plays, and it like doesn't know what to do, and like you leave the cutscene and you're in a different location because that's the location where the phase 3 was supposed to happen or whatever. Like, I just awkwardly blew him up, and then he's just like kind of like standing, clipping through the middle of the zone tank while he talks to us while we make our final choices. It's like, I don't think the game was meant to go this way. I think what the fuck happened?
Oh my god. I look forward to reaching the end. It's probably going to be a few more months for me.
But like that's how I felt with the end of Cyberpunk. I'm amazed
that game's lasting the way it is for you.
I mean, I didn't kill the Gippers immediately. I waited a few episodes.
You see a dialogue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We just had a very long 1 hour fight.
Did you kill the robots as well?
Yeah, they
just wouldn't talk to us.
Oh,
that's the thing.
They weren't our friends because we killed Reagan Boss.
That's the thought I meant to explain before. Is that like here's why it sucks so much to have games where you can just kill NPCs in many cases. Is that like, one, it leads to games being so segmented and isolated that nothing feels like it's consequential because they're afraid you'll just kill the people in that area. But 2, if they ever have the balls to make anyone seem important, if you do kill that person, then what happens is just like hours and hours of content. You like an ambitious game that nails it and follows through really well and everything would be like, okay, here's the alternate story to deal with this entire branch where this character's dead or whatever. But Wasteland 3 is just like, nah, all those that entire quest hub's just turned off.
Yeah.
Absolutely. we were faced with like an incredibly obvious villain boss fight of like, here's a giant mechanical Ronald Reagan that's executing people for Red Scare reasons right in front of us. I can just shoot him right now. Why would I not do that? But not only does that turn off the entire quest hub that you were standing in at the time, it turns off the entire next quest hub. So that area also has no quests. So the entire robot settlement just doesn't have quests. So we just walked around in a circle, talked to a few people, and they're like,
that's the area that you're referring to. Yeah. There's 2 basically attached areas. It's weird that it turns off the other one, to be fair, but
not only does it turn off all of the quests, of content there, but one of them is the guy that teaches you one of them is the only person in the entire game that can give you like cyborg parts and make you a cyborg. So you lose that entire feature of the game because of the fact that like and it's like, it's also confusing because like you're introduced to Reagan by him executing a robot. So you think they'd be like, oh, you got rid of the guy that's been killing us all, but it's like, no, they're like mad at you for killing the guy that was killing them, and it's like, what? And it's like, it doesn't make sense that they're mad in that way exactly, but it's just the fact that all of their quests must have been dealing with Reagan in some way. That's just the placeholder dialogue. That's all they can say about the fact that all of their quest lines broke because you killed this one character that's evidently the most important character in the game, maybe even more important than the Patriarch.
It's sort of, it's kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's the most important character so far. it's sort of inconsequential, really. It's more of a prop for the Gippers than necessarily a character. But
yeah, but I mean, like that one character dying has more impact than any other character death in the game.
Just to give you an idea, the moment I found the Gippers on episode 68, and I'm up to episode 80, and that's half an hour each episode. So that's that's the 1 hour that you got is 6 hours. So yeah, it's a little bit of content.
I gotta remember. I have to remember that. Yeah, there's a difference in episode lengths because ours are an hour long. But how long was ours? Ours was 40. So we had a 40-hour playthrough basically. So still, yeah, year 80 or so it was around the time we were finishing the game.
Yeah, this is my first. That's my first son, or not child. That's the one. My first child of the patriarch is the one that's in the Gippers.
Yeah,
it also features. I am very pedantic.
Have you even finished with the one child yet?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, just now.
Whoa.
Just on episode 80.
Whoa, what? Wait, how?
Because I spend, well, half of it is the fact that I go through all the dialogues, but the other half is that I spend a lot of time rambling about pedantic stuff that I was going to talk about. In this area, you get the chance you meet a robot who wants to have sex, and you can have sex. And the game treats it as if it's something out of this world, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's just a sex robot. We have that in real life. And so I went on a tirade about that. But yeah. And then
we beat the game in like 40 episodes. Holy shit, that's crazy to me.
And the thing is, the robot comes up to you and says, "Hey, I really
power of standing still and talking."
The robot comes up to you and asks, "Hey, I want to have sex," and you're like, "Okay," or whatever, however you want to have the dialogue. And then it fades to black, and then it comes back, and one of your companions, or my companions anyway, says, "I will never be able to unsee that." And that raised even more questions.
Because apparently they watched.
Apparently they watched, and also why would you not be able to unsee someone? Like, what did I do? What is this?
Yeah, you're like, why did they watch? Why was this a group endeavor?
I honestly thought he was going to be, because I mean, it's a big robot. There's plenty to go around.
It's a big robot.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know.
The fuck does that mean?
All I'm saying is, the robot has appendages. This it works.
No, I'm just imagining like a fucking beholder. Like it's just this like floating ball of like orifices. It's like, there's so many slots to use. It's just got appendages and orifices just on every surface as it floats in the air.
I'm sure somebody drew that already.
It can service an entire party. What, like a beholder where the eyes are dicks?
A beholder, yeah.
Like all the eye stems or stalks or whatever.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. That's not even that weird by internet standards.
I will not even look it up, because otherwise it's...
Yeah. The dildolder.
Oh, God.
I wonder how they would call it.
Yeah.
That at least you can't get confused about what it does.
Yeah, because the question is, what do you want to do? Like whether or not you want to make a what do you call it? Fuck. Whether or not you want to portmanteau it.
Yeah.
Where you merge the words.
There's probably like a smart pun. We should ask Bird. He knows this stuff. He's an expert.
Yeah, I always have to remember that you don't necessarily make daily videos of each game either. Which is part of why Wasteland is still lingering about.
I've been doing that for a long time. Not everyday videos. I think it works better for me whenever I'm like, if I'm really hyped to play a game, I get to play however long I want. But if I'm not really feeling like it slows it. The fact that I don't do it every day allows me to. It means
you don't have to come back to that much. I just feel like that's a lot of narratives to like hold in my head at the same time, because they're all narrative games.
That's why I play a lot of old games, so I know the plots.
Like back when I had my other job and I was doing this in parallel, I kept like trying to be like, like basically every game that fell in the umbrella of like the kind of game that I figured I was supposed to kind of try to cover, I would immediately make a video on day one of the beginning of the series, and then they would start stacking up too fast they weren't getting finished. So I was like, now they're every other day, so that I can like still be updating them all simultaneously and so on. But there's just too many playthroughs at once, and it's like I'd have this nightmare spreadsheet of like, here's my 8 playthroughs that are happening right now. And it's like, fuck this.
I remember you doing that.
Like I have like a vague version of that now, kind of, but it's different because I have my 4 main playthroughs that are the real schedule, and then there's like the vague aspect of like, and then there's multiplayer, which is more like there's the Andrew playthrough and the Stephanie playthrough and the Bird playthrough, and then there's whatever the fuck happens when the multiplayer group meets up on the weekend, and it's just like when it's there or whatever. But that does functionally lead to more playthroughs, although a lot of those don't have stories.
Well, you did have a lot of trouble with the Luigi Castle one when you went on a hiatus for like a week.
No, that was Luigi's Mansion was on a hiatus for like 3 months, I think.
Oh, was it? Oh, it was
man!
so
what, really?
Yeah, no, because what happened is,
no wonder you had trouble.
Well, it was being played on Stephanie's schedule, which is the same way as like Andrew and so on, where it's just like, just whenever we get around to it, it's like we meet up whenever we feel like it and we record it, and then I cut it into episodes and space it out in a reasonable way to just kind of come out here and there.
That's why it seems
in the middle of that happening, Patreon nominated Phoenix Wright, and I'm like, oh god, a visual novel. Like I definitely want a second person for that, like with Zero Escape and everything. So we just put Luigi's Mansion on hiatus because we needed to record Phoenix Wright, and specifically we had to have the relatively aggressive schedule of being able to put out like a daily video, as opposed to like the weekly videos was Luigi's Mansion. So like it just wasn't time for it. It's like we had to completely stop that because like this playthrough is mandatory, whereas Luigi was just a thing we were electing to do because there's nothing more mandatory than whatever the current Patreon playthrough is. Like I'm like beholden to that. Like that's a promise I've made. So like that's just So that was a 100 episode playthrough. So Luigi's Mansion was gone for a while, and then we came back and finished it once we were done with that. And then something similar happened with Y2K, but Yick. But that was just because we wanted to do we just wanted to do a Halloween event. So we wanted to play horror games throughout all of October, and then we just came back when we were done.
Phoenix Wright is the worst written game ever.
It's
like not even.
It's stupid not even in a lot of ways,
999.
but it's so good as well. So much more enjoyable than 999.
Much more.
Its personality is better, and its characters are more fun, and that makes up for the nonsense, like literal plot holes that are always in these books. Like you'd think that maybe the detective crime series might be more bulletproof, but it's just riddled with plot holes.
I think part of it is the fact that the characters are made to be likable. Like even the villains are made to be likable. Well, not all of them. The DLC decided not to do that. But the main game, I think, like every character is there to make you as a player have a good time. And in 999, that's not the case. A lot of them are, obviously it's a
almost
different
every
tone,
character is infuriating. And you're just,
So if you're gonna write a story with infuriating characters, you need to be really good at writing, because otherwise, why would I?
Yeah, but
the reason why I watched the Let's Plays is because Andrew and you were complaining so much.
They're often not charismatic. Like fucking Edgeworth is infuriating, but he's fucking great. Edgeworth's a great character, but
absolutely,
Santa is just. I want to die.
Oh no, I did it. That's the worst of them all. It's worse than I don't remember. Clara? What was her name? The one with the pom-poms? The one that I'm going to spoil. I was going to spoil
Clover.
Things. But Clover, that's the one. She's very infuriating, but at least she had. I think she accidentally is the best character.
Clover?
Because she's so infuriating. She's so weird and nonsensical and just sort of out of nowhere, and like she's used so often as the way for the plot to advance, because she comes with like she has moods.
Wait,
and
what?
she has.
I don't know if I can emotionally go process like going back to these games and thinking about them again.
I don't know. I think you're like gravely overestimating the role that Clover plays.
I'm just thinking about how by the time you finish 999, I'm thinking about like by the time you finish 999 and Zero Escape, in both cases, multiple characters, like you find out the reason for what's happening and why everyone's there and what the plot was, and that's asinine in its own way. But then you look back at all the characters and you're like, there's always like 1 to 3 characters that doesn't make sense why they're there in the first place, and you're like, wait, this is like a life ruining experience, and they're incorporated into this, and like, it's like, why the fuck is this character here? Like, what? Like, you didn't actually justify this by the end, though, like you promised to.
999 is a game written like, you know, you come up with a story in your head and you're like, okay, it's got this plot and it's got this twist and it's going to be amazing, and you write it and it's the story, right?
You work backwards from there, and then it just
but
you just
999
shovel the Play-Doh pieces into your fucking puzzle set and hope it fits.
But if if you do that, it works more or less. 999, what 999 does is I'm going to come up with 5 or 10 twists that are all going to work together, and then in the end it's going to twist again, and it's just there's so many nonsensical.
999 ends on a cliffhanger reveal like slide painting that is retconned immediately out of the next game. Like, that's how no plan nonsense everything is, and how nothing makes sense.
Yes, I forgot the mummy, like, because she's set up as to be a mummy, but then it isn't. Oh no. But I had fun watching.
That's not canon.
3
it's
times
literally
now.
The ending of the game.
Yeah.
I hate.
The second one is worse.
Nope.
Right?
I hate the Zero Escape series and its writing.
The second game is worse, right?
I mean, it's only worse
because it's so long.
Yeah, it's worse because it's longer and still doesn't make any sense at the end of it. Like, where you're like, what the fuck?
It introduces like 500 stupid things.
They were on the moon, but they didn't know.
They had so much more time to be stupid in so many ways. And
they
like,
were on drugs the whole game.
It's so much more up its own ass complicated. And all the reasons complicated are even dumber, and they keep getting dumber. And it's like an infinite fucking Russian nesting doll of stupid explanations that just keep contradicting each other or being just fucking convoluted for no reason, and not in any kind of cool way. Like, people come out of this thing like, wow, it's like Inception, and it's like, this isn't, none of this was cool complicated, even if you like those kinds of things.
If you like Inception just for, I mean, Inception isn't really a plot twisty kind of movie, but but if you like a movie,
but I just mean how people marvel about like the mechanics of its narrative storytelling and like the layered thing that was happening, or like Memento, for example. Like, Christopher Nolan has a bunch of movies where he's specifically known for having this like complicated, structured storytelling with a thing going on. Like Memento in particular is a lot of that, where every scene is being shown in reverse order, and like there's a reason for that and everything. And he's kind of up his own ass about that. I've been hearing that like this backfired hard with Tenet, but I haven't watched it yet. Where it's just like, Nolan, stop, because he's kind of turning into Shyamalan, where it's like, here's my one gimmick, I have to make every movie in this style now, and it's like, maybe not.
Well, yeah, I didn't watch Memento or the other one that you mentioned.
Memento's good.
What I'm saying is
worth
that
watching.
It's okay to like good fiction for reasons that are not necessarily what make it good. Yeah, and it's important for you to realize that just because, you know, because like, I don't know, let me think. I like Shakespeare. Let's just come up with the most.
It's like people that like Breaking Bad because they see it as like a wish fulfillment power fantasy for Walter White, and it's like, no, incorrect. That is not anyone's intention of that narrative.
No, but if that's your thing, I mean, don't talk to me. But it's fine. Just don't try to justify other series being like that for those reasons, because that's not why Breaking Bad is good. It's like the reason why Breaking Bad is good, if we're using that example, is because it's consistent for one. It's very consistent from start to finish, and it tells a long story with few words, all things considered, because it's very focused on the day to day. That's my take on Breaking Bad. And the long story is for you to appreciate, and it's not there. And then at the end, obviously, it comes all to the whole thing. But it's a complicated series, and that's I think what makes it good. If we're gonna analyze it as just an old dude becoming a drug lord, and that's cool, that's not. And you can't use Breaking Bad to justify that. Is what I'm saying. And if you look at Inception and how complicated it gets, and you say it's good because it gets complicated, you're taking the wrong lesson out of the movie, I feel.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just the thing that people like fixated on.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're taking. I'm not talking to you, Keith. Yeah, I'm just talking.
I just realized the fucking like the grave that Andrew has dug himself.
What?
And Andrew?
We're going to be playing Zero Time Dilemma in 2021, like this year.
What?
And possibly, if you get enough audience members, sure.
Because Andrew has repeatedly said at this point that he'll do Zero Time Dilemma when I hit 100,000 subscribers.
I will.
And I have 94,000 subscribers.
Yeah. If you get 5,000 or 6,000 more subscribers,
I get like 1,000 a month. So that means we're probably playing Zero Time Dilemma in like July.
It could be faster if you tell your friends and family about subscribing to Keith Ballard.
It's like the promotional thing. It's like
all my subscribers are already subscribed to you, so I can't send them your way.
It's like one of those infuriating like thing where the thing is where the YouTuber keeps like making a claim like, if I get this many subscribers, this series will happen in like every video, but I'm not the one making it. And Andrew just decided this is the fucking threshold for some reason. It's not even his channel. He's not even like this many subscribers on Sad Games.
I mean, that's a big deal. 100,000 subscribers is a pretty good
I get like a
chunk.
toy. I get like a toy trophy thing.
Yeah. I keep hearing people saying that they don't send them anymore.
You have to request it. Yeah, I believe if I remember correctly, you have to request that you get it, and I think you have to you still have to like pay shipping or something for it, and then they'll send it your way. But I mean, it's subs in the last 30 days 900. So yeah, he's right. Every month he gets almost about 1,000.
My dashboard says I have 1,011 from the last 28 days.
It lies.
No.
I don't trust it. I'm just looking at Social Blade, so it doesn't have.
That would be really funny if Social Blade was more accurate than the actual creative tools. When it's just scraping data off the website. They'd be like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?"
I don't like the dashboard.
Either way, that's an outlook for 2021. Is you may get a return to Zero Escape, which is
like it's the We Survived 2020 celebration. Even Zero Time Dilemma can happen now.
We survived 2020. Let's make us regret it.
I mean, I look forward to it. I've wanted to do this.
Why? It's such a bad game. Why would you want to play it?
Closure.
Closure.
Just to finish the series and see how it ends and the stupidness of it all.
Maybe it's gonna be better. Maybe you're not gonna want to tear your eyes out every time.
That is a thing that I keep entertaining the idea of, in particular, because this is supposed to be the game that the fans don't like and are mad about.
Oh,
and so I'm like, does that mean I'll like it more? Like, what if the choices that are controversial are things that I'll like more? Because like, I mean, I'm like, I already thought this before either of these pieces of media came out, but more recently it's like The Last Jedi and Last of Us 2 happened and everyone's mad, and then I play it, I'm like, this is like the best thing this year. This is great. Like I'm really confused right now about what I was supposed to be mad about. So it's like, what if Zero Time Dilemma is this big controversial game that the fans hate, and then I play it, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. This is way better.
I'm under the impression, because people have constantly told us that this one or this one or this one is going to be the good game. I'm under the impression that zero fucking of the Zero Escape games are possibly ever going to be good. And everyone just has the one that isn't stupid enough for them to give up on. So there's like somehow one of the games reaches a limit where they're like, I can't even entertain the stupidity. But they pick the one that is the least of all of them and say that's the one that was the good one.
People usually say Zero Escape is the best one, but
which is baffling because Zero Escape is the dumbest one.
I think it's incredibly bad. But among many other things, it also has the fucking cheat code of just not having to end. Because that's the fucking twist here. 999 was like a relatively self-contained thing that ends basically. And then Zero Escape is like, no, it's a trilogy. And like many trilogies that are originally just supposed to be one movie, the middle one, like Empire Strikes Back or like Pirates of the Caribbean 2, whatever it was called, like they just kind of like set up a bunch of story. And like even when they sound like they're going to kind of end, they kind of just like abruptly like kind of roll credits while not resolving the problem and just leaving it open-ended for a future thing to deal with later. And it's just to some extent, if people then like hate the follow-up that finishes the story, I'm kind of like, well, then maybe you kind of hate the previous one too, because that was the one that set up, like, that's just one story in many cases. Like in many cases, the second and third movie is just one story cut in half, like Harry Potter 7 part 1 and 2. Or it's like that's just one story basically that's meant to be experienced continuously, essentially. And because it's kind of like cheating to be like, oh yeah, that's my favorite one, the one that, you know, is a plot heavy thing that doesn't bother resolving its plot and just leaves it to be somebody else's problem later, and then it's like that's a problem for future me, and then later on it's like, oh god, I'm future me, I don't know how to finish the story.
But Keith, it's like Game of Thrones. The 4th season is the best one, and it's the one that sets up the ending that nobody liked.
Yeah, well, the 4th season is also thankfully the conclusion to a lot of the first 3 seasons of stuff.
I used it as just an example, but
yeah, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, personally I prefer the first one, but maybe it isn't the best.
I mean, Game of Thrones starts really strong, and to its credit, it is all the setup to someone's story, but then it became the conclusion of somebody else's story. Because they ran out of the first someone's story and had to make their own ending, and also were in a real big hurry all of a sudden to end. That's because
they have a Star Wars to ruin,
and then they got canceled.
Because they suck so much.
It's so frustrating that they had a chance to do Star Wars, so
it's not frustrating. It's just desserts. That's what they get.
No, I mean it's frustrating it's frustrating that's why it happened. I mean, it's frustrating from the Game of Thrones perspective.
Oh yeah,
the fact that they fucking the creators of the Game of Thrones show, for those who don't know, basically jumped ship and wrapped up their project as quickly as possible because they were so ready to jump onto this new project because they were going to get like the chance to work on Star Wars and stuff like that. And so even though there was clearly like years of story left to resolve, they just kind of resolved all of it in like the shortest season so far, and then just ran. And that's why, that's among many other things, that's why the last season is just so fucking miserable. And then, the thing that they were supposedly doing just doesn't exist anymore anyway. So it's like, wow, clap, clap, great job. Like the last 3 seasons before that were already declining in quality.
Yeah,
but that one was astronomically bad in a way that did not match up with how they were handling things until then. They clearly just were like, nope, we're out. We just want to go. And like, fucking George R.R. Martin wanted the show to keep going. HBO wanted the show to keep going. Like, no one was in their way.
Yeah, I bet HBO wanted to. I mean,
it's so fucking frustrating.
But to tie up to how we started, it does have a fantastic soundtrack. It is one of my favorites. And it's also really like it's out of it's very complicated from a musical perspective. It's not like cliche. It doesn't sound cliche, and that's because of things that goes on with the composing. But it's so good. Like especially the last season. I think the last season was the best in terms of soundtrack. The second season was very good as well, but the last season has some moments that are just outstanding, incredible. Which they also had to be, because the cinematography was, while it was really good, it was also like, that's the thing with the last season of Game of Thrones, is that even though it was rushed, the episodes were very, very slow, because they just, I don't know why. Like scenes that could take 1 minute took 2 or 3, and it was really weird.
They're also long episodes individually.
Yeah,
so that was a weirdness. But no, the first, like, I think I remember correctly, like there was I was hopeful because like the first 2 episodes are actually like very good.
Yeah,
and then you get to like the let's start resolving things, and then all of that's like, oh god, why are we going so fast? Why is everything nothing makes sense? And you just start snapping characters over their knee. It was like, no, stop it! I love them. And just ruining every character arc, and
I have
them all getting drunk together in the night before the battle was like,
I think that was the best part.
This is going to be a good season. Then it wasn't.
Yes, yeah. There's one scene in the 4th episode that foretells the ending of the series, and there's like a whisper that goes on in one particular scene. I don't know if you. I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but there's one particular scene. It's the scene with the Starbucks cup. And there's a whisper in the background, and I was on the lookout for it because I sort of had my own theories about how the ending was going to be, and you can hear the whisper. And I've been looking for I haven't looked in a few months, but every once in a while I look up online, see people talking about the whisper. Nobody has ever mentioned the whisper that tells the ending of the story, and I commented on your Discord, Keith. There's a whisper where I commented on your Discord. I think it was like in January. I don't remember the date exactly, but I think it was like right after the episode went up. And people were like, I don't know if it's there. And I told it like on 4th episode how the season was going to end, and it did. And I am the only person in the world that knows it because nobody ever commented about it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not going to check.
No, I know.
I'm convinced you're just making stuff up.
No, it's
time to start a wild scavenger hunt where I trick you into watching like the worst episode of TV.
without spoiling it, it's the twist for the main character, for Daenerys. It's foreshadowed by a whisper that she hears. The 4th
quote
episode.
Unquote twist was foreshadowed since the first season of the show.
Well, it was, but it wasn't also.
It might even be the intended ending of the show, except for the fact that they just fucking did it. They didn't earn it.
They did it wrong. I don't think it was
very well might
properly.
be the way that the story ends, but they didn't actually earn any of it and do the part where they tell a story to get there.
But what I'm saying is that if they made the whisper a little bit louder, people would have heard it and they would be like, "Aha! I know where she's going to go with this." And then
we already mostly knew.
But so many people were like, "This came out of nowhere." That was all.
It came out of nowhere because they didn't tell a story that actually got to that point.
That's true. Yeah,
that's not how stories work.
But if you're gonna foreshadow that level of character development, it can't be just retroactively applied.
It can't be like an Easter egg.
But like that's what it feels like. A weird whisper
wouldn't fix the season.
It feels like an Easter egg, but it's like a fundamental plot development. I feel that if they made it louder, because it's audible if you have a good headphone pair or whatever. But it's not very loud.
Talking about like some moment where she like stares into space and she's like hearing something no one else can hear.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, it's probably like this. I think I remember a scene where like everybody is meeting together. In a scene, and she kind of like has a crazy look for a second there, and she hears something.
Yeah, she hears what has been foretold, but I'm not going to spoil it because there's no point in it. And if more people heard that, they wouldn't be surprised than when the 6th episode shows.
They wouldn't be surprised because they set up that plot point like 10 times technically over the course of the show. It's just they didn't actually tell the story of how it got there. Like they didn't.
Yeah.
It was,
but the whisper would be a little bit of a help.
A fucking light, it's kind of like Rise of Skywalker, where just like characters just arbitrarily switch sides in the course of like a 3-minute scene, and it's just going too fast. Wow. And you just didn't
really?
like in Rise of Skywalker. There are things that could have been a good movie, but they didn't get there. They just teleported there, and that's what Game of Thrones did.
I've heard, I never watched Rise of Skywalker, but I've heard like easily half a dozen podcasts about it.
Oh my God.
Including yours.
It's one of the most unwatchable movies I've ever seen.
But I like the podcasts. I like hearing people ragging on that movie.
Like I have I have rewatched the prequels so many times and just been like, oh yeah, here's all their stupid flaws and how silly they are and whatever, and here's the like that's dumb and that's dumb and that's dumb and whatever. But like I can just watch them. It's great. Like it's whatever. Who cares? They're just not great, but I can just they're totally watchable movies. Rise of Skywalker is like aggressively unwatchable. Like I wanted out in a way like I haven't felt since like I think the movie Priest and Suicide Squad, where I'm like, I want to leave. I want to leave the theater. I don't want to be here. This is such aggressive. It's like, it's specifically, among other things, it's like the fucking like bad adaptation of a book kind of editing, where you're like, why is this moving so fast? Like fucking John Connor of Mars or whatever it's called. John Marsman. Marsman. Whatever. It's like an old comic that's like older than Superman. That's like the kind of the setup of the idea of Superman, and they did John of Mars or whatever like a few years ago, a movie adaptation, and it's like,
oh, I've heard of this. Yes,
it's such an alien world and such an alien story, and it's such a big
Wasn't it supposed to be
source
two movies
material,
and they
just
it
tell
one?
it in fucking fast forward for the whole movie, and it gives you a headache. And I'm like, I want to leave. I don't want to be here. This isn't fun. Simplify the story if you can't give it time. Just simplify it so at least that what we get can be fun and be well told. Otherwise, I just want to leave.
At least Suicide Squad is going to get the Snyder cut, which I'm sure you're going to enjoy a lot. What a shit show!
People thought that was a good director because he made a good movie. He made a movie people liked before that one. But then after Suicide Squad, he made Bright. So maybe he just sucks. Because Bright is horrible.
I watched half of Bright after seeing somebody be really mean to Bright. And I was like, I think this would be fun to watch. It was not fun to watch.
No, it's not.
It's really not.
It's
surprising.
Actively horrible.
It's very surprising why it's not fun to watch.
Better like, lives don't matter today.
Yeah, I was ready for that.
Hot.
I was ready for it. I think it was Lindsay Ellis that made a movie, video about it.
How many times does Will Smith say that when he thinks about his career? Like, it's rewind time. Like,
never had a friend like me. I'll never forgive him for strangling that dog.
What? In real life or in a movie?
There's a movie where he's
going through all of his. Yeah.
There's a movie where he strangles a dog. I've seen a lot of Will Smith movies. I grew up watching so much of Men in Black over and over again.
Was it Men in Black that he strangled the dog?
That would be a fucking tone change for Men in
Jesus
Black.
Christ.
Little known fact, Men in Black also scored by John Williams. Brought it full circle. Probably not John Williams.
No, it's not.
See you guys next time. We need to cut. We're late. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.